services that you would do at the municipality physically by going there, but you can now do them on a mobile app.
Join Ms. Phumelele Zondi on Sundays at 9 p.m. on SABC News.
$900 Central Africa time on this May Day. It's Monday, the 1st of May, 2017. Marumo, it's Workers' Day today.
Workers' Day, and as workers, we are here to work to celebrate Workers' Day.
Well, that's what we're celebrating and commemorating today. We're focusing on May Day, or International Workers' Day today, which was born from the industrial struggle for an 8-hour day. As we commemorate this day, we're asking you, what challenges are workers still facing in the workplace as we speak? I would like to know from you on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook page. Let us know what's on your mind. We'll read some of those comments as soon as we get them up and running to share with our viewers what we have out there, Marumo. But we're also conducting a poll on the newborn South African Federation of Trade Unions, SAFTU. Now, SAFTU was born, and we're asking you the question here.
And the question we're asking is, should unions be linked to political parties? And of course, 142 votes are in, 14% saying yes, and 86% saying no.
Now, why we're asking this question is because SAFTU said that they want to have a worker-controlled organization focusing on the issues of the workers and not politically linked at all. And that's why we're asking you. So far, you can participate in the poll, and you can also send us a tweet around that. We'll read those comments as we continue. But now, let's get down to business and take a look at your news headlines. President Jacob Zuma will deliver COSATU's May Day rally in Bloemfontein despite opposition from some of the Labour Federation's affiliates. The South African Communist Party General Secretary Bladen Zamande reiterates the party's call for President Jacob Zuma to step down. And the teenager who was killed for allegedly stealing sunflowers on a farm near Kolini in the northwest has been identified as the 16-year-old Mahlomola Moshweu. Those are some of your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Romo Gakana what's happening on the sports front. It was raining goals somewhere else.
It was raining goals, and also we have casualties when it comes to coaches that have lost their jobs already as things are heating up. The latest one being Gordon Nicholson of Highlands Park.
Former Bafana coach. Can you believe it?
Coach, his team is now fighting relegation, and the management of the team decided, nah, we're done with this thing. Also, last week we saw Dan Malesel of Chippa United, also Mpenge today saying, Baba, it's time for you to go. You are no longer M7 here.
Soccer's a tough game,
It's a tough game indeed. Top of the log and defending champions, Mamelodi Sundowns will play against third place, the Bidvest Vets, in what could potentially be the PSL League title decider. Give it to me. Tottenham Hotspurs won the North London Derby by beating rivals Arsenal by 2-0 and closing the gap to 4 points, keeping their title hopes alive. Stay with us. Later on, we'll give you this and other stories making headlines in the world of sports. But first, we take you to the main desk where Elvis is standing by with news making headlines across the world.
Thank you, Marumo. Top story this morning. Despite opposition from some COSATU affiliates, President Jacob Zuma is expected to address the Labour Federation's May Day rally in Bloemfontein. Now, some COSATU affiliates say the decision to allow the president to address the rally is not consistent with the Labour Federation's call for him to step down. COSATU in the Western Cape says it will use May Day to highlight a number of issues. The Labour Federation is planning to march to 3 locations today, including Parliament. Several other rallies will take place across the country. Trade Union NUMSA and the newly formed Labour Federation SAFTU will observe Workers' Day in Durban. Meanwhile, DA leader Musi Maimane will address a May Day rally today at Blue Downs in the Western Cape. So we'll keep you updated on some of those rallies that's happening across the country, and we'll bring you some of them live and update from that from some of our reporters a little bit later. Now, during labour discussions, a lot has been said about young people, the labour market as well as trade unions. Now, this sector of our workforce constantly complains about unemployment and lack of opportunities. To look at the involvement of young people and if they are using trade unions to engage with the labour market, SABC News earlier spoke to labour analyst Mamokgethi Malopyane, who says that unions need to reinvent themselves to resonate with young workers and graduates.
South Africa's labour has come far, organised labour has come far. We workers were part of the dismantling of apartheid. They mobilised very well in those days. But post-94, one of the challenges that organised labour and trade unions and their federations are struggling with is finding a way to define themselves. And by that I mean, how do we attract more young workers? Secondly, they are also struggling to keep up with the changing definitions of what is work? How do we define work? In the 80s, work used to be 8 to 5 factories and mines, but now people can work from home. We are moving towards what is called knowledge economy. So the definition of work falls away. The working hours falls away, and we are finding that trade unions are struggling to keep up with that, but also they're struggling to resonate with young workers. Graduates who are unemployed or graduates who are getting into work are struggling to find a common link where their parents were trade unionists or members of a trade unions. They are not that much interested.
So they're not really interested in joining. I mean, that was one of the issues that I wanted to raise with Zwelinzima Mafavi about the new SAFTU union. We're seeing a trend around the world that labour unions are actually diminishing, that you're finding that workers are not joining them purely because they're casual workers. They don't want to have to worry about being a part of a union. This trend, though, in South Africa, I mean, when you see a new union starting and automatically have a membership of 700,000, there's obviously still a very big demand for labour unions in South Africa, though.
Absolutely. I mean, South Africa, to an extent, is an anomaly. And I say that because trade unions within South Africa are so deeply entrenched in the politics of our politics, but also that they are very active and very vocal and are perceived as being very strong. So while it's not surprising that Zwelinzima Mafavi might, and the collective might start a new federation and it might have 700,000 members, one must not forget that part of that includes the NUMSA members who were, of course, without the federation after being expelled from COSATU. And in saying unions and organised labour movements in South Africa must redefine who they are, must reinvent themselves, and must find a way of resonating with young workers and graduates, because we have seen what has become clear with Fees Must Follow us, that young students and future young workers can organize themselves without the traditions of trade unions. And therefore, any new federation, any new union that is arising, if it cannot speak to their needs, it runs the risk of not including them. And therefore, I do not see how it's going to survive, given that our population and the rest of the continent is going to be the youngest population in the world in the next 20 years.
It was a little bit earlier, so that's why we're asking you the question today on our poll, because the new union, the new baby on the block, the South African Federation of Trade Unions, SAFTU, says that it plans to grow its membership base and promising workers a more militant and worker-controlled organization that is free from political influence. So we're asking you this morning, should unions be linked to political parties? 193 votes in, 23 hours left to vote. 85% of you on the African continent are saying no, they should not be linked to political parties. 15% are saying yes. But you're also tweeting us on the question that we posed on the poll. This one from Herman says, or Herman, no, the leaders will fight their political battles claiming that they are representing the members, so they shouldn't be linked. Lachaza Batlamolo says, SAFTU, hashtag, big no. They should not be linked to any political party because they won't abolish the labor brokers owned by the ANC members. Well, there you have one from Lachaza. Katali says, hell no. Politicians push their own agenda all the time and not the interest of the people. So says Katali. Mshlengi says, well, if they want, they can be linked to a political party. So these are some of your comments coming through. You can keep them coming and we'll read them as we continue. Now we're talking Workers' Day today and May Day. Now, despite opposition from some COSATU affiliates, President Jacob Zuma is expected to address the Labour Federation's main May Day rally in Bloemfontein today. Now, some COSATU affiliates say the decision to allow the president to address the rally is not consistent with the Labour Federation's call for him to step down. For the latest on the main May Day rally, we go live to our reporter Eldrin St. Pierre, who's in Bloemfontein. A very good morning to you, Eldrin, and welcome. Can you tell us what is the latest around the May Day event there in Bloemfontein? Are people gathering already?
Well, good morning, Elvis. Yes, it's said that President Jacob Zuma will be delivering the keynote address here at the stadium here in Bloemfontein, where we expect thousands or hundreds rather of COSATU members and supporters to make their way, marching all the way from Batu Hall, making their way here to this park, where they will be hearing messages of support from both the SACP as well as the president, who will be delivering the message of support on behalf of the ANC. But as you've mentioned earlier on, that this happens in quite an interesting time when you look at the statements that have been issued by Nahau as well as the Communication Workers Union as well as SAFTU, who have said that considering that COSATU has taken a stance that President Jacob Zuma should step down as the president of the country, we are sending a confusing message to members of the public or community members as well when we allow the president to be addressing members of COSATU and supporters of COSATU as well. So quite an interesting time indeed, but we've heard from the Secretary General, or the General Secretary rather, of COSATU, Begin Jalinjali, saying that, listen, the decision that was taken at the special CEC was that the president should step down as the president of the country, not as the president of the ANC. And when President Jacob Zuma is here to address these members and workers as well, he will be speaking in his capacity as the president of the ANC. So very an interesting time indeed. We'll have to wait and see how exactly that unfolds, considering as well that yesterday you had the General Secretary of the SACP, who was speaking in Gauteng at another memorial lecture on Chris Hani, and calling on President Jacob Zuma to step down. Would he be making that same call when the president is sitting exactly next to him? That's something that we'll have to wait and see, whether we'll have the guts indeed to tell the president while the president is sitting next to him, to say, Mr. President, we as the SACP as well as COSATU, who are both alliance members, have taken a decision and we have called on you to step down. Please heed the call that is coming not only from us as alliance partners, but also from broader society as well. When you consider the marches that have been taking place, at least 3 profound or significant marches that have been taking place, calling on the president to step down. But let's focus on the essence of today, of course, being May Day and workers' rights, something which is quite essential to what today is about, International Workers' Day. And right now I'm joined by the Director General of the Labour Department, and Tate Tobile. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Just a quick summing up of the significance of today, taking away the politics but focusing on what makes today such a special event in terms of speaking about worker rights and making sure that every worker, wherever that person is working, feels that they are in an environment where they feel that they are protected not only by the labour laws but also making sure that their employers as well.
Well, we've come a long way as a country. Especially when it comes to labor market policies. Since 1994, the Department of Labor, government in general, has been putting in place labor market policies that are giving effect to the Section 23 of the Constitution, which says that every worker has a right to fair labor practice. And I'm happy that today we're celebrating May Day. We have quite a number of progressive labor market policies that we've put together. And it was not only government, it was the organized labor, organized business. And these labor market policies are indeed protecting workers, but also giving rights to employers as well. Because employers have got rights as well that must be protected so that they can run their businesses in a profitable way, and also making sure that there is productivity. Now, most importantly, workers in this country, they know that whenever they are, if they are ill-treated, the Department of Labor has got inspectors that they can call on any day to go and verify the claims that they are making. And if indeed we found that the workers have been abused, the labor legislation that we have, they empower us to take legal steps. And over the last 20 years, we've been doing exactly that, protecting the workers. And I'm sure you are aware that recently we've amended the Labor Relations Act. We've amended the Unemployment Insurance Act. We did that solely to make sure that we provide extra coverage to those who are, we call them so-called vulnerable. You will know that we have a phenomenon of labor broking, which is very abusive. With the amendments that we've made, we regulated it to an extent that the abusive that were there are not as strong as they were, because now workers can actually take their cases to the CCMA. We have clearly defined who the employer is in instances where the services have been procured through a temporary employment services or a labor broker. On the Unemployment Insurance Fund, we have now extended the period that you can lodge a claim through the Unemployment Insurance Fund. In the past, you were only limited to 238 credits over a period of 4 years. Now, and that covers you for about 8 months. Now we've extended it to cover for a period of 12 months. And what it means is that as long as you have accumulated the credits throughout the year, you can claim for UIF. Most importantly for women and those who qualify for maternity benefits. Currently, the law says that they can only claim benefits which is about at the replacement rate of about 30 to 60% of their income. We've increased that to 66%. But we've also covered people who are pregnant but had stillborn. They can then claim benefits from unemployment insurance fund. So those are the progressive provisions that we've put in the law to make sure that we extend social protection to vulnerable members of the society, and but also to create an environment conducive for business to flourish. I mean, we want to make sure that there's stability in the labor market.
Yeah. Which is something which obviously is quite important. But let's look at, for instance, the Employment Equity Act, for instance. I think it was about 2013 when the act came into effect. And I remember at the time I was working at a certain radio station, and we were running the story that now somebody can go and lodge a complaint when they feel that a person who's been employed doing exactly the same job as that person is doing, like I'm as a black person, Aldrin St. Pierce, doing this certain job, but somebody else who's a white person doing exactly the same type of job is earning way more that I'm earning, and that has come into effect. How has it been received so far, and has it been implementable?
It has been implementable. The Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration is seized with quite a number of these cases, and indeed it was a welcomed provision because it's unfair for anyone to be paid less than his or her colleague whilst they're doing exactly the same thing. But the important provision that we've put also in the employment equity is with regards to labor broking and temporary employment services is that if your services have been procured through a temporary employment services, the tendency has been to pay you less than the workers that are employed full-time by the client. So this provision of equal pay for work of equal value has come in handy for those employees, because now when they're employed, they earn exactly the same salary as as employees employed full-time by the client. So indeed, this has been a very good provision that we've put in the employment equity legislation. Yeah.
And let's just quickly speak about the Labour Amendment Act as well. A couple of years ago, there was the proposal that there be amendments in terms of when workers decide to go on a strike, the ballot system should be used, that there should be a secret ballot. I think there was opposition from labour unions, of course, COSATU as well, saying that that's not what they want. Where are we in terms of that? And what are employers saying?
I mean, let me first start by saying balloting has always been in the legislation, in the Labour Relations Act. And the Office of the Registrar of Labour Relations has always insisted that the constitutions of federations and unions should include a provision relating to balloting. So it has always been there. And that is why when we had discussions at NEDLEC, unions said, we don't have a problem because it's already been there. The issue that they had was the monitoring mechanisms, which we've now put in the amendments, which gives the Office of the Registrar powers to monitor whether that indeed balloting has taken place. So the issue is not it's not on the table anymore because it was resolved satisfactory. Employers as well are happy. Organized labor is also happy with that. Yeah.
Final question before I let you go. Quite significant this year was the agreement around the minimum wage, which was spearheaded by the Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, and implementation expected around about I think it's May next year, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, is this a significant step for those workers who find themselves quite vulnerable, who feel that they can't go for a high wage? They've been arguing, they've been going, having disputes with their employers as well, saying that, listen, the money that I'm earning is not enough. And we've heard from the ANC as well, from the president, from the deputy president, saying that this is not a living wage, but it's a step in the right direction.
Indeed, the national minimum wage is a step in the right direction. It assists us to begin to close the wage inequality gap that exists in our country. But most importantly, if you look at the hairdressing and the salon sector, you'll find that most employees, they earn 6 rands an hour. Now, from 6 rands to 20 rands, it's quite a huge increase, and I think they will welcome it with with both hands. Now, if you argue that the 20 rands is nothing, you must actually think about those people who are currently earning far less than what others are earning. And what we've noticed is that even with the collective bargaining system and the wage agreements that are there, a number of them are less than 20 rands. So a number of sectors are going to benefit from the 20 rands per hour rate. So we view this as a progressive step, and we hope that with this agreement, collective bargaining will be enhanced, because it is a responsibility of both unions and business to bargain for a wage which is higher than the floor, which is the minimum that we've put in place. That's the responsibility of government, to make sure that we protect the vulnerable workers. And national minimum wage says that this is a wage below which no employee should be paid. And we want to make sure that a collective bargaining system is strengthened in our country. So unions must now go back and fight for a rate which is higher than 20 rands.
Well, quite interesting indeed. And speaking about the bargaining as well, it's, something which I found quite interesting as well is that when you look at the National Union of Mine Workers, for instance, they came up with this thing that when we go for bargaining, when we go for a salary increase and the demands for salary increase, we don't want let's say, hypothetically speaking, a 16% increase across the board. But what they do is that they look at the amount that people are earning and want an increase based on the amount and not across the board, which is something quite significant, because I was speaking to the president of the NUM as well, and was saying that what we need to do is make sure that those who earn quite low, that we bring them up with us, those who earn a lot, and make sure that they also get a living wage. Quite an interesting time indeed that we find ourselves as the country. But as the DJ has indicated, that South Africa has made significant strides indeed, and that's the reason why today we can celebrate that South Africa has a national minimum wage, which is something that the ANC has been calling for. But some are arguing indeed that it's not a living wage, but it is a step in the right direction. We will be having lots of other interviews with other politicians, as well as the unionists as well, speaking about the state of affairs in the country when it comes to labour brokering as well, which has been a big issue for COSATU. They've of course called for labour brokering to come to an end. However, though, the government has decided that that's not the way to go. We've heard from also from the PPF, which have argued that the reason that it has been unimplementable that labour brokers be banned is because of Section 22 of the Constitution, which allows for trading to happen and allows for free trading as well to be taking place. And that's the reason that it has not been implementable. And they've called, of course, for amendments to the Constitution. So quite a broad number of issues that we will be tackling today. And of course, looking as well at the political landscape that the country finds itself at the moment. But quite interesting is that everyone will be looking at President Jacob Zuma when he delivers his speech, but also the messages of support that will be coming from COSATU as well as the SACP. Back to you in studio.
Eldrin, before you go, I just want to check with you. You've looked at the program for today and how it is going to proceed. Just take us through that, and what time is the proceeding supposed to get underway?
Well, we expect the march to start around about 10 o'clock from Batu Hall, which will then proceed right here to this park here in Bloemfontein, and then we'll expect the President Jacob Zuma to deliver the keynote address. But of course, before that, we'll have messages of support that will be coming from the alliance partners, including COSATU as well as the SACP. And as I've indicated, that you know what, today is about May Day, it is about worker rights and so forth. But many will be looking very closely and paying attention attentively to what the messages of support will be saying. Indeed, what are those messages that will be coming out, and whether the likes of the higher education ministers, also the general secretary of the SACP, whether they will stand in front of President Jacob Zuma and say that the president must step down. The other thing as well, of course, is that considering that COSATU has made it clear that President Jacob Zuma should step down, and Nahau, as well as CW, as well as the Communication Workers Union and SAFTU have said that the president shouldn't be addressing today's proceedings, will the president be embarrassed? There was a statement that was issued yesterday by COSATU calling on its members and saying that they must be responsible, they must respect today's event that will be taking place, and make sure that they don't damage the image of COSATU or the alliance, and quote unquote saying that listen, today is about May Day, it's about worker rights, and the alliance itself shouldn't be thrown to the rotten ground because of one component, and that component being President Jacob Zuma.
Eldrin Sampear, thank you so much for your time and joining us. He'll join us a little bit later to give us an update as to what is transpiring there. It's a standoff, he says. Remember, this is May Day. What is going to be delivering today? Now, the SACP General Secretary, Leyden Zimande, says that the call for the President, Jacob Zuma, to step down was not an easy decision to make. Speaking at the Chris Hani Memorial Lecture in Boksburg, Zimande said that the SACP, the South African Communist Party, should not be expected to protect the ruling party.
Reiterating the call for President Jacob Zuma to step down.
Both the party and COSATU, they have come to a very difficult decision to say the president must step down. It's not something that we took lightly. It's because we were of the view that part of dealing with some of the problems that we are having, he must assist us by stepping down.
Addressing scores of supporters, Nzimande criticized government's handling of state capture.
You can't say the Guptas are an alternative to monopoly capital. In fact, the Guptas and their behavior has become the most immediate thing to deal with in order to defend our capacity to engage or fight monopoly capital.
Former Ekurhuleni Mayor Mondli Gungubele says the ANC operates differently now to what was envisioned by its forebearers. As political parties brace themselves for a vote of no confidence against President Zuma, Mondli Gungubele called for introspection.
The Gupta issue is a national question. It's a question of the nation. A sensible political party must find a program of clarifying it to the nation.
The party says it's time it focused on the SACP as a movement and grows itself. Hundreds of members ended the event by visiting Hani's grave. Lopangalamu, SABC News, in Ekurhuleni.
Now, as we commemorate Workers' Day today, we're asking you today on our question of the day. We'd like you to tweet us on that on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. What challenges are workers still facing in the workplace today? That's the question we pose to you. Let us know what's on your mind. Let's take a look at what you have to say on the Twitter handle thus far. In relation to the question, this one from Tabo says, Incompetence of labour inspectors is making our beautiful laws useless. Well, that's a thought there. This one from Polite Mtunjwa says, good morning. It's still hard for some of us today. We're working and our boss is deducting UIF yet we are not registered. Well, that's something that we need to talk to. Tabilanga says, the new cheap labour strategy in town, internships. Our youth are being used by companies under our government's watch. Hashtag Workers' Day, hashtag May Day. Well, now these are some of the issues that people are struggling with right here on Workers' Day. Now the Federation of Unions of South Africa, Fedusa, plans to take the newly launched workers' union SAFTU, South African Federation of Trade Unions, to court over the similarities in the name. But with calls for radical economic transformations, unions might have bigger fish to fry. As you know, South Africa's workforce is still faced with several issues, such as high unemployed youth, inequality, as well as minimum wages. Now, with many industries resorting to more digitized workspace, it seems the worst is yet to come. We're in the fourth industrial revolution, people. Joining us now in studio is the General Secretary of the Federation of Unions of South Africa, Fedusa, Mr. Dennis George. A very good morning to you, sir, and welcome.
Good morning. Good morning to all your listeners.
We are commemorating Workers' Day today. How is Fedusa celebrating and commemorating this day?
Look, Fedusa is taking a different approach. The president of Fedusa, Mr. Godfrey Matsela, and General Secretary and Deputy General Secretary will be visiting all the 9 provinces during the month of May, where we will have a more constructive engagement, because we want to go and listen to what is the concerns of the members on the grassroots. And we also want to respond with solutions that we can formulate together. So for us, this kind of things of May Day rallies is a one-way communication, and it doesn't really, give the people on the grassroots a chance to keep the leadership of the Federation accountable.
Now, before we paint a very bleak picture of doom and gloom in the country, there are some successes on the labour front in the country 23 years into democracy. What would you highlight as some of those successes for the workers?
Look, I think the issue that our constitution made provision for trade unions to form organizations to look after them, and also for members and for workers to join trade unions. But what we see the response from employers is they are always threatening workers not to join trade unions. And that is one of the reasons why the union density is so low. It's because many companies even force workers in their contracts of employment not to join trade unions. And Fedusa is actually calling on the workers, if there is instance like that they should please let us know so that we can expose those particular companies. But the fact that our constitution gives us the right to belong to trade unions must be exercised in full. And then Fedusa's program is a program of decent work and decent life for all. And that includes obviously the young people in our country. And we have, for instance, people under the age of 25. There's more than 4 million of those people that can't find employment. They are not in training. They are not at FET colleges. And that makes it very difficult for them to find a space in the workplace. And those are the second challenge that we must address. I think the issue of the announcement of the National Minimum Wage Agreement that we have concluded with government in NEDLAC have also now given us and taken away the right from employers away that they can exploit people at the bottom of our labor market and give them any money that they want to pay. And the 2 industries that is now being phased in is the one for domestic workers and the other one for agricultural workers.
Now, Mr. George, there are a number of issues because we are asking our viewers today what are some of the challenges that they face within the workplace. You've heard some of them and you've seen some of them currently in your screen, but one that actually touched me was the one that where a worker is saying they are paying UIF and that's being deducted, but it's not being paid, so they don't know where's it going to.
Yes, South Africa has a problem with enforcement and also with compliance, because we've put a lot of legislation on the law books, but when it comes to compliance, the labor inspectors are not going to inspect the books of companies to make sure that the monies that they've been deducting, are effectively paid over within 7 days' time to the Department of Labor. But it also deals with the other benefits like retirement funds that must be paid over, the skills levies. So I think it is important that we must have a permanent force that will continuously be able to monitor the system to ensure that all the companies are complying with the UIF payments and other statutory payments that must be made to government.
From Fedusa's perspective, what are some of the key issues that need to be addressed in relation to workers? Because there's one also that came through on the Twitter handle that says there's a new slavery. It's called internship.
Yes. Yeah, look, internships is an important labor market, active labor market policy to give students an opportunity to do practical work in the workplace. Because our education system and curriculum work like this, that you do the theory on the one side, and then you must also do the practical before you can get your full qualification. It works well for attorneys, where a person finishes his law degree, then he does his articles and his internship with the legal firm. And they normally do that for 1 year or for 2 years. And the learnership legislation makes provision to even indicate what is the amount that must be paid and that the person should not be abused. And the best solution, if people feel abused by that they should approach the CCMA and have the matter being resolved by the CCMA. But it's no use people are only going to tweet. They must do something to go to the CCMA.
That's correct. There was one also that came through that says the CCMA take long to finalize these matters, but it is a form where you can actually get through and make sure that your matters are being addressed, even if it takes time.
I don't buy that story that the CCMA took long. The CCMA is by law required to deal with disputes in certain time limits, and I must say the success ratios of the CCMA is very good.
Now, political parties are calling for radical economic transformation. Is this just sloganeering, or are you suggesting that this is perhaps a new way for workers to be empowered in the country?
Yes, look, I think to a certain extent it's a smokescreen. When they've interrogated the Minister of Finance, he came with another story. He said, no, what radical economic transformation means is actually inclusive economic growth. Now, if you look at the definition of inclusive economic growth, it talks about growth that is going to create jobs. It talks about growth that is going to support the fiscus. It talks about transformation that we must give black entrepreneurs and black small businesses that were previously discriminated against in the past, to give them an opportunity, not only just financial, but also non-financial support so that they can grow their business and participate better in the economy. But there is no government that can come and give any person a business like you give a person a house. A business is something that you must grow. It's an independent institution from you. But I think it's also important for us to transform our state-owned companies. If you look at how our state-owned companies are performing, it is really a problem because there's no good governance. If you look at the SAA case, SAA is now looking for another bailout of 4 or 5 billion rand. That is not radical economic transformation. And what we can maybe use as an example, in South Africa's case, you remember when the government started with Sasol. With Sasol, the government sat with the problem of not having oil in South Africa. And so they transformed the coal to oil. And then later on, this company was sold off to the private sector. And currently, Sasol is one of the companies that pays the highest amount of taxes in South Africa. Because we need the taxes to also pay people for the social grants. And so therefore, I think it is important that for South Africa to have economic indaba, that we can really sit down, because this language of white monopolistic capital, I can label Elvis anytime if I see me, you are a shop steward for white monopolistic capital and so on. I think we must sit down as South Africans and say, where do we want to be? I mean, this call that is being made for the president to step down is also as a result of his incompetency. Remember, we already now had one finance minister under President Nelson Mandela and under Thabo Mbeki.
Yes.
And under the current president, we already had 4 finance ministers. You can't create the amount of instability in the system, and that's the reason why South Africa is downgraded to junk. And in order to bring confidence, that we need to bring under NEDLAC all the social partners together, and with a package that the president will step down, that we will have a time to rebuild and to secure investment grade status for South Africa.
Is this perhaps why we have political uncertainty and, of course, the issues that we are facing? 2 downgrades already, perhaps a 3rd one on the way?
Yes, look, I personally myself, after we returned back from the visit to New York and to London, I told the president, look, the investors have asked us, why did South Africa have 3 finance ministers in 1 week? Is there something that your president don't understand? And when we explained to him, and after that, you saw what happened to Minister Pravin Gordhan. Week after week, the Hawks was issuing statements and to undermine the man. I mean, a Minister Nene, a decent man, quality person, you can't corrupt that guy. The same with Pravin. They were doing this for our country. And we know what is now the consequences. And the fact that Moody's have issued a statement that they are busy reviewing South Africa to downgrade us also. I'm telling you, the next 2-3 years are going to be very difficult for workers.
SACP is calling for the president to step down. Are you doing the same? And why would that be the case? And is the president the only stumbling block for this economy to grow and for workers to have equality?
No, look, I don't think the president is the only stumbling block because the ANC in itself is divided. They've got 2 factions. The one faction that fights against the other faction, and that is not good for democracy. And the fact that that is happening now, before the election, I think if we want to stabilize our economy, then we have to start with securing Indaba, number 2, having the president replaced by somebody else, and then thirdly, that the social partners must commit to work together to make sure that we have inclusive economic growth in South Africa.
Now, we have lots of issues to discuss, and I believe that we're running out of time. But 3,500 Rand, some are calling it slave wages. This 20 Rand per hour for the minimum wage. What do you say to that, and is that perhaps a starting point?
No, that is definitely a starting point. Remember, we battled for 2 years with business and with government to say, look, please make the minimum wages at least where the living wages is, of 4,500 Rand. And they came back and said, no, they can't afford it. They say it's going to create many job losses. And it's at that stage that we then asked them to appoint a panel of experts. They did a study, both from South Africa and international, and that is where they proposed an amount of 3,500 Rand. So it is only a starting point for us. It's not the end.
Just briefly, Mr. George, because now we're seriously in the red. You want to challenge SAFTU, the new union, and take them to court?
Yes, our attorneys have already written a letter to them. Their attorneys responded back to us. The problem is not with SAFTU's short name. The problem is with the long version of the name. So if they can give us an undertaking that they are not going to use the long version in the media, then we don't have a problem to take them to court. But it's something that we can still discuss.
Because you are the Federation of Unions of South Africa.
Yes.
They are the South African Federation of Trade Unions. If you read them back, you can see it's exactly the same thing.
It's exactly the same thing, and that is what is our concern.
Thank you so much for your time, sir, and enjoy the commemoration of Workers' Day today.
Thank you very much.
That was General Secretary of the Federation of Unions of South Africa, Fedusa, Dennis George. Now in our studios in Durban, we'll try and get in touch with SAFTU to talk to us about that as well. But let's now take a quick look at what's trending on Twitter. And we start with #Workers' Day. Events hosted by the Workers' Union and political parties will be held across the country today to celebrate the success and strides that South Africa has made in terms of workers' rights and focus on what still needs to be addressed. COSATU is hosting their main event in Bloemfontein, and the Democratic Alliance is hosting a rally in Cape Town. Now, further afield, Workers' Day is also celebrated in a number of countries. Now, here's an image from Russia's Red Square, where thousands took to the streets in Thailand over better working conditions. And thousands of people are expected to attend a rally in Chicago. As we go just backwards, that's Thailand there that you see. And then, of course, the last one will be the US, where it's happening around the globe on Workers' Day or #May Day. And in England, the town of Oxford was up at 6 a.m. to celebrate the start of spring. Traditionally, maidens would dance around the maypole as part of a fertility ritual. Fertility, that is. Hashtag May morning. Coming back home, in other news, after a week of violence, the teenager who was allegedly killed for stealing sunflowers on a farm near Colini has been identified as the 16-year-old Matlamola Mashweu. Hashtag Colini. Our picture of the day comes from Sal Greenwood, and it is captioned, "A new icon is born." Here he is, Joshua Klitschko. That was the match. Anthony Joshua there standing over Klitschko. And then, of course, on the other side, you see Muhammad Ali. Same stance a number of years ago. And look at that. Don't they look similar? Fantastic. Our comment of the day comes from Vikram Maruya, and he says, today is International Workers' Day. It aims to pay tribute to workers' sacrifices in achieving economic and social rights all over the world. Those are some of your social trends that we are identifying this morning with the pictures and comments that's coming through. But a new South African Federation of Trade Unions will celebrate May Day in Durban today. Now, May Day, as you know, is traditionally a day when workers all over the world take to the streets to recommit themselves to the struggle against exploitation by capitalist systems, which condemns the workers whose labor creates the world's wealth to a life of poverty, hunger, as well as indignity, while their rich exploiters get richer. Now, the day will also be used to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the largest affiliate, NUMSA, of SAFTU. That's the affiliate of SAFTU, which was launched in 1987. For the latest on this, we're joined by our SABC reporter, Simpiwe Makanya. A very good morning, Simpiwe. What is the latest on SAFTU May Day celebrations there in Durban today?
Well, very good morning to you, Elvis, and good morning to the viewers. Well, we are here in Durban, where the new Workers' Federation, SAFTU, will be leading a march from Fountain to the City Hall. There's General Secretary of the Federation, which is Mr. Zolinzi Mavavi, together with the General Secretary of NUMSA, which is the biggest union within this new Workers' Federation, will be addressing some of the issues that are facing workers in the country, as today we're marking Workers' Day. But to unpack some of the concerns, rather, that the workers still face in the workplace, I'm now joined by Mr. Mfanufigile Nkosi, who is from the union NUMSA. Mr. Nkosi, thank you very much for your time. Today, as we mark this day, how are the workers feeling?
Thanks. But what one would like to emphasize as a secretary of one of the affiliates within the federation, NUMSA, we want to highlight that we are aware that within the country, South Africa, we are experiencing a high level of unemployment. And hence, we as affiliates and as a federation that is just launched, we foresee that we need to focus, we need to move with pace radically in terms of addressing the level of unemployment, the way the current system or the policies of the government is working in terms of addressing the issues pertaining to the workers, in particular the level of unemployment. You find that the students are working, they are studying at various levels or tertiary institutions, but when they move out of those facilities, they are unemployed. And we as a federation, we hope that we are going to turn the tide and come up with strategies and means to make sure that those issues are addressed.
Mr. Nkosi, one of the resolutions which came from the conference of the new Workers' Federation was that it is not going to be aligned to any political party, this new Workers' Federation. How is that going to assist in terms of galvanizing support for this new Workers' Federation?
Absolutely. We learned from the past that aligning a workers' federation with a specific party compromises the rights of the workers. Hence, we had to take a stance to say we are going to be independent as SAFTU to move progressively in addressing the workers' issues, because you find that sometimes when the issues of the workers are mixed with party politics, they are compromised. And we develop strategies and structures where we are going to work closely in making sure that we deliberate with issues within the federation as affiliates in the federation, and make sure that indeed we do not engage in party politics, because we understand the dangers of engaging in such. Because in the end, you find that the very pertinent issues which are affecting the workers are not clearly addressed, because you find that there is a shift of mindset. One focuses on the left instead of focusing on the right. Hence, as we are saying we are independent, it does not mean that we are apolitical. Hence, we are going to address the issues or the policy issues which are within the country, which are affecting the working class, but also at the same time we are going to be cautious on addressing purely the issues that are affecting the workers, not mainly the working class, but also the other unemployed people, because we've got lots of graduates and postgraduates within the country who are jobless. And as a federation, as affiliates, we need to touch on those issues to make sure that the balance is struck in a way.
Okay, Mr. Nkosi, thank you very much for your time. All right, that was the representative of NUPSAL, which is one of the unions which are part of this new Workers' Federation. While behind me, you can see some of the members have already started gathering. We are expecting the program to start in about an hour's time from now. The program was scheduled to start at 9 o'clock, but there are delays. But as soon as the program gets underway, we'll bring you further updates.
Thank you so much. That's our reporter there. Simpiwe Makanya is coming to us live from Durban. That is the SAFTU rally that's taking place there now. We were supposed to speak to a SAFTU representative a little bit earlier. In fact, it's going to be the General Secretary, Zwelinzima Vavi, but I believe there's some problems in our studio in Durban. As soon as we can connect him, we'll have a chat with him, because I think it's going to be a very interesting one. But we're asking you that question, of course, today. It's Workers' Day today. What challenges are workers still facing in the workplace? That's the question we pose to you. Let's take a look at what you have to say on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook page. This one coming from Bonakela says, we're looking forward to transformation of private security sector, bring back dignity of our security officers and let them be respected, says Bonakela. This one from Lefatla says, we're struggling with yearly salary increases. The workers must first engage the companies by striking. Why? Asks Lefatla. Mara, why? Hosi says, inequality. CEO gets 100 million rand and his worker gets 40,000 rand a year. That alone is very satanic, says Hosi. Nazo Ikana Nazo says, the elephant in the room are the labor brokers, a complete formalized slavery, inequality and racism of the highest form, says Icona. Labor brokers, of course, an issue that COSATU has been driving for years. We'll also find out from SAFTU about that. Herman says, slavery, people who live in rural areas and who don't know their rights tend to work more and earn less. Now, these are some of your comments coming through. You can keep them coming on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom as well as on the Facebook page, and we'll continue reading them. Now, we have our guest in the studio it's our analyst to talk about Workers' Day in general, because with May Day events taking place across the country today, the rights of the workers are being reviewed. And we'll talk to Mr. Leon Lowe. He's the Executive Director of the Free Market Foundation in a short while to discuss these issues. And we'll continue after 10 o'clock with him because we're running out of time for now. But South Africa is still faced with high unemployment rates, and with the current situation at the stand, it looks dire. But just how far have we come 23 years into democracy? And what successes should we be celebrating today? Now, to tell us more is the Executive Director of the Free Market Foundation, Mr. Leon Lowe. Very good morning to you, sir, and welcome.
Good to be with you, Elvis, and the viewers.
Can workers really celebrate Workers' Day today in South Africa, you think?
Oh, there's a lot to celebrate and to lament. When your previous guest, Dennis George, also a friend, left, he noted with approval that I'm wearing a red tie. What I do want to point out is that it's a red tie with pictures of Adam Smith. And this is because the free market around the world has given workers in the world the best living standards they've ever experienced. So there is something to celebrate worldwide. There has been a fantastic rise in living standards for workers. Yes. I'm wearing a black suit. And the reason is we have to lament and weep about the fact that we have 8 million destitute, unemployed South Africans. In other words, workers who aren't working. That, just to put it in perspective, is 4 times more people than the total membership of COSATU are in fact unemployed. The former speaker, Mr. Nkosi, mentioned about their job being to try and address this issue. So, yes, we need to lament the fact that not all workers have good working conditions. We would like to see them better, and any decent human being wants every other human being to have fantastic living standards. You know, people talk about the minimum wage and they want 3,500, 4,500. Why are they so mean? Why don't they want 10,000 or 20,000? That's what we should want. And the way to get that is to have high rates of economic growth. The best beneficiaries of high growth will be the working class, because the 8 million unemployed will get jobs, and the people with jobs will have fantastically rising living standards. And again, a simple statistic. If you grow the economy at 7%, which the successful countries in the world do.
Where we're currently standing at just under 1%.
It's essentially zero. So we're stagnating. If you grow at 7%, your economy doubles every 10 years. Since 94, we would have had an economy 4 times bigger, doubling and then doubling again, at 7%. At 0 or 1%, it takes 70 years, a lifetime, 70 years and 10 to double. So by far the best thing for the workers would be high growth. Minimum wages are actually a tragedy. We should mourn them, and the reason is it condemns the 8 million we already have to remaining unemployed, and condemns anyone who can't get the minimum wage to become unemployed. So it will increase the destitute people. We should celebrate the people with a job. We should, and they're wonderful. Very few people who are executives realize what being a laborer is like. I've done hard labor myself. It's very hard. And you see people working on the side of the road on building sites, extremely hard and tough. Many jobs laborers do are very boring, you know, being a security officer at a gate.
Are you then suggesting that the minimum wage might even lead to more job losses?
It must, and everyone knows that, and the study to which Dennis George referred, the so-called expert panel, it said there would be greater job losses, and they said they would not be statistically significant. Now, I find that frankly disgusting. To say that we already have 8 million and you put another million or so into unemployment, 1 million human beings into indignity, destitution and suffering, and you call it statistically insignificant? So no, it's very sad and very tragic. We want every worker to earn more, and we want all workers to be employed earning more. The only way to do that is firstly get rid of the minimum wage, get high rates of economic growth, and that is easy to achieve. You do what all the other countries in the world have done to get it, which is you privatize, liberalize, cut the size of government. Our government is now bigger and controlling more than ever in our history. It's one of the highest and most expensive governments in the world. With that, we will stagnate. So we want radical economic transformation, which is to transform the government in a small government, consuming less, and allowing the economy and the people and the workers and the laborers to prosper.
Mr. Leon Lowe is my guest this morning. He's going to continue with us after 10 o'clock, after the news headlines and some of the news items, and we'll come back then. So stay tuned.
This Ford Kuga thing is becoming a hot potato for them, excuse the pun.
US car maker Ford has finally admitted that a fault is causing some of its Ford Kuga SUVs to catch fire, and it also formally issued a recall in South Africa.
Ford needs to take accountability.
We'll work with our dealers and try to come up with a way that satisfies them.
It's 10:00 hours Central Africa time here on the Newsroom. I'm Elvis Preslin.
And I'm Marumo Kekana.
Jumbo Africa, and a warm welcome. Stay with us on this Workers' Day, and that's why we're focusing on May Day today, on International Workers' Day, which really focus on the workers, and it was born from the industrial struggle for an 8-hour day. Now, as we commemorate this day, we're asking you, if you're a worker today, we are asking you, what challenges are workers still facing in the workplace? Let's take a look at some of your comments coming through on the question that we posed to you. This one coming from Herman. Marumo?
This one coming from Herman saying slavery. People who live in rural areas and who don't know their rights tend to work more and earn less.
Says Herman. This one from Tabo says racism must be criminalized and those companies who do it must be deregistered. Wow.
Tisato saying same positions with the same years of experience, but different salaries, all depending on your skin color, workplace issues.
Yes, Ivor Daniel says contract work by labor brokers. That is the problem, identifies Ivor.
This one from Eddie saying that CCMA takes forever to finalize some of the cases, which makes one think that they might be colluding with the employers, security industry.
Well, Eddie, as you heard earlier from Fedusa, they are saying, no, that's not the case. They are very competent, that is the CCMA. So if you have an issue, take it through to them and discuss it. So, but we're also conducting a poll today, Marumo, and we're looking at the issues that relates to unions linked to political parties.
Very interesting, the amount of votes that we have thus far. We're sitting at 336. And of course, the poll question we're asking is, should unions be linked to political parties? 85% of you saying no, and only 15% saying yes.
And that's 15% of the entire African continent saying they should be linked. Kotso Mayanlani says unions should be linked to political parties where they share some ideologies. Hashtag SAFTU, hashtag SABC Newsroom.
This one from Yandi Sabafana saying that not at all. Simple,
straightforward and to the point. Lahasa says, hashtag Workers' Day. We are abused by labor brokers. We don't earn enough money. Abolish labor brokers, please, says Lahasa there.
And Lahasa is very serious there. And MC Mkabis is saying that no, because this creates internal contradictions with the aliens and makes it difficult for unions to effectively represent workers. That's a valid point.
Very valid point there. Brown Skin says unions that are not linked to political parties are likely to sell out their members. Union members come from constituencies before joining the unions. These are some of your comments. You can keep them coming. We'll read them as we continue during the course of the show on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom as well as on the Facebook page. But right now, let's get down to business and focus on your headlines. President Jacob Zuma will deliver the COSATU May Day rally in Bloemfontein despite opposition from some of the Labour Federation affiliates. The SACP General Secretary Bladen Zamande reiterates the party's call for President Jacob Zuma to step down. And the teenager who was killed for allegedly stealing sunflowers on a farm near Kolini in the northwest has been identified as the 16-year-old Mahlomola Mashweyu. These are some of your headlines before we get to the news. Let's find out from Marumo Kekana what's happening on the sports front.
It's very interesting. I'm even looking at your colors there that you were singing Kabuyelo. So I assume that you've nailed your colors to the mast between that match between Vets and Sundowns.
Not at all. Hey, I'm just waiting to see what the outcome is going to be.
Of course, that's a match not to be missed. As top of the log and defending champions Mamelodi Sundowns will play away against third place Bidvest Vets in what could potentially be a PSL title decider. Tottenham Hotspur won the North London derby, beating rivals Arsenal by 2-0 and closing the gap to 4 points, keeping their title hopes alive. We'll be back with a detailed sports bulletin, but now Elvis is standing by with news across the world.
Thank you, Marumo. Now, despite opposition from some COSATU affiliates, President Jacob Zuma is expected to address the Labour Federation's main May Day rally in Bloemfontein today. Some COSATU affiliates say the decision to allow the president to address the rally is not consistent with the Labour Federation's call for him to step down. COSATU in the Western Cape say it will use May Day to highlight a number of issues. The Labour Federation is planning to march to 3 locations today, including Parliament. Several other rallies will take place across the country. Trade union NUMSA and the newly formed Labour Federation SAFTU will observe Workers' Day in Durban. Meanwhile, the DA leader Mmusi Maimane will address a May Day rally today at Blue Downs in the Western Cape. During Labour discussions, a lot has been said about young people, the labour market and trade unions. Now, this sector of our workforce constantly complains about unemployment and the lack of opportunities. To look at the involvement of young people and if they are using trade unions to engage with the labour market, SABC News earlier spoke to labour analyst Mamokgethi Malopyane, who says that unions need to reinvent themselves to resonate with young people and young workers as well as graduates.
Labour has come far, organised labour has come far. We workers were part of the dismantling of apartheid. They mobilised very well in those days. But post-94, one of the challenges that organised labour and trade unions and their federations are struggling with is finding a way to define themselves. And by that I mean, how do we attract more young workers? Secondly, they are also struggling to keep up with the changing definitions of what is work? How do we define work? In the 80s, work used to be 8 to 5 factories and mines, but now people can work from home. We are moving towards what is called knowledge economy. So the definition of work falls away. The working hours falls away, and we are finding that trade unions are struggling to keep up with that, but also they're struggling to resonate with young workers. Graduates who are unemployed or graduates who are getting into work are struggling to find a common link where their parents were trade unionists or members of the trade unions. They are not that much interested.
So they're not really interested in joining. I mean, that was one of the issues that I wanted to raise with Zwelinzima Mafavi about the new SAFTU union. We're seeing a trend around the world that labour unions are actually diminishing, that you're finding that workers are not joining them purely because they're casual workers. They don't want to have to worry about being a part of a union. This trend, though, in South Africa, I mean, when you see a new union starting and automatically have a membership of 700,000, there's obviously still a very big demand for labour unions in South Africa, though.
Absolutely. I mean, South Africa, to an extent, is an anomaly. And I say that because trade unions within South Africa are so deeply entrenched in the politics of our politics, but also that they are very active and very vocal and are perceived as being very strong. So while it's not surprising that Zwelinzima Mafavi might, and the collective might start a new federation and it might have 700,000 members, one must not forget that part of that includes the NUMSA members who were, of course, without the federation after being expelled from COSATU. And in saying unions and organised labour movements in South Africa must redefine who they are, must reinvent themselves, and must find a way of resonating with young workers and graduates, because we have seen what has become clear with Fees Must Fall was that young students and future young workers can organize themselves without the traditions of trade unions. And therefore, any new federation, any new union that is arising, if it cannot speak to their needs, it runs the risk of not including them. And therefore, I do not see how it's going to survive, given that our population and the rest of the continent is going to be the youngest population in the world in the next 20 years.
Now, of course, as you know, we're celebrating Workers' Day today. And the question, of course, on the poll that we posed to you, should unions be linked to political parties? That's the question. 336 votes in. 85% of you on the African continent are saying no way. 15% are saying they should be linked to political parties. Let's take a look at your comments. Caroline says, no, no, no. Unions should be focusing on the interests of the workers. Liking or linking to political parties would be shifting the focus. This one from Usi says, not at all. I'm happy about the formation of SAFTU. Viva SAFTU, viva! Cosatu is a sellout and his alliance to the ANC. Peter says the answer is no. We need a strong independent body to rebuke governing parties when they are off track. This one from Valentine says unions should be independent of political parties as pressure groups. They protect their interests or the interests of the workers. And this one from Linda says no, they shouldn't be linked at all. These are some of your comments. Keep them coming. We'll read them as we continue. So, of course, we're also asking the question on Workers' Day, what are you celebrating, or are there still some challenges that workers are facing today as we speak? Now, May Day will be celebrated all over South Africa by different trade unions, and in Mpumalanga, the unions will embark on a march at Umbaba Estate in Hector-Spruit, where about 300 workers remain dismissed. The Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, will be at that event. Now, for the latest, we are joined by Mweli Masilela, our reporter there. Now, he will be talking to a representative of the dismissed Umbaba workers, Dumisani Madonsela. But before you do that, Mweli, first and foremost, tell us what is the latest regarding the May Day celebrations there in Mpumalanga?
Good morning to you and the viewers. I can tell you already there are people, I can say hundreds of these people are starting to gather for the provincial May Day rally. You'll know that we are coming to you live from Hector-Spruit. The march that is set up here, it's going to be taking place at the Umbaba Banana Estate. That is where in 2015 over 300 workers were dismissed. The information that we got about that dismissal is that the owner of the farm didn't want these workers to join a union. So we know that today the Deputy President of the ANC and of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, will be addressing the Mpumalanga leg of the May Day celebrations, and he is expected to join the workers who are currently going to take to march to Umbaba Banana Estate. But joining me now is the representative of the workers of Umbaba Estate that were dismissed, Dumisani Madonsela. Dumisani, it should be one of those days whereby you reflect as workers.
Definitely sure. Today is the day we celebrate the Workers' Day. But as Umbaba workers, we are not celebrating because we are still suffering. We still need a union, that which is our choice. So the Deputy President of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, is coming today. Why we want to tell him that the Deputy President must go to the President, Jacob Zuma, because as the workers, we do call all the office of the government. We need intervention to the President direct. Today, the Deputy President is coming. We want to tell him, we want to send him to the President of the country, because Umbaba is not undermining only the workers, it's undermining the law of this country. As we said before, it's 395 people have been dismissed last, 2015 in December time. Up until now, and that people, there are more than that 395 people, because Umbaba workers now outside is about 1,200 and something, like that.
Yes, in terms of this dismissal, some people who have who don't have maybe the information as to why were you dismissed as workers, what is it that you can tell them?
I will tell the people that this is our right. In 23 years democracy, there's no one has a right to violate our right or to manipulate our right in this country, because each and everyone has the right, even the student has the right to join the union. What about the workers? That is about 4,000 here and Umbaba workers, but they don't have a union currently.
The dismissal, how has it affected you as workers?
We are so very, very affected, because even if you see now here, our children is around here to support this march, because they don't have food at home, and we receive nothing since we've been dismissed.
And then in terms of the union that you were supposed to be joining, what are they saying? Because I know that initially they took on the struggle to have you reinstated.
No, I think if is that union was supposed to join the FAO, but the FAO now is not representing the workers. And also, what is the problem that we had here? Is the CCMA, because since we have opened the case to the CCMA in 2015, we are still waiting for an arbitration, but I don't think that we can take this too long to take arbitration to the CCMA. Something wrong between Umbaba and the CCMA, including Department of Labour as well.
Well, that is Tumsani Matonsela, a representative of the workers that were dismissed here. We know that the Deputy President, we are told that he will be addressing the workers at 11:30 this morning. It's back to you in studio.
Thank you, Mweli. That's our reporter there in Mpumalanga. Now in Cape Town, the DA leader, Musi Maimane, will address a Workers' Day rally at Blue Down Stadium, which is scheduled to start round about now at 10 o'clock. Our SABC's reporter, Vanessa Puna, joins us now. A very good morning to you, Vanessa, and welcome. Can you sketch the picture for us there? What is happening at Blue Downs?
Yes, a very good morning to you from the Blue Downs Sports Centre here in the East River area, where the Democratic Alliance this morning is also hosting a Workers' Day rally. Now, it's the 23rd year that a Workers' Day is celebrated officially in South Africa since the advent of democracy in 1994. But it's also a day that has been celebrated and commemorated in many countries since the late 1800s. And at the root of celebrating Workers' Days, of course, back then, it was the fight for an 8-hour work day, but of course today also fair labour practices, creating employment, etc. Also some of the key issues that we celebrate Workers' Day for here in South Africa. Now joining me is the provincial acting leader of the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape, Mr. Bongi Nkosi Madikizela. A very warm good morning to you. Quite a number of people out here at the end of a long weekend. What is the Democratic Alliance's key message on this Workers' Day?
Good morning, Vanessa, and good morning to the viewers. Our key message, of course, is that today we are celebrating with our 3 million workforce in the Western Cape in particular. These are the people who are the heartbeat of our economy, and with their contribution, I think we're able to do a number of things, and that is why it is important for us to celebrate this day. But at the same time, we are concerned by the high levels of unemployment. So while we are celebrating on one side, but at the same time, we are finding ourselves as a country in a very, very difficult, situation. Having been, downgraded to a junk status, it means it poses a serious threat even to those jobs. But I think what we need to do as Democratic Alliance from now going forward, we must take a posture that says we're a government in waiting. We must come up with solutions, particularly in a number of sectors in the Western Cape, like your agri-processing, your tourism, and how do we make sure that we deal, with the levels of unemployment, particularly in the Western Cape, where we're sitting at about 21%. Of course, it is the lowest unemployment rate in the country, but 21% is still too high. So those are the things that as Democratic Alliance are saying, that while we are celebrating on one hand, we've got to really come up with ways and means to make sure that the 21% that is still unemployed also find employment.
Also, the issue of youth unemployment is a very big problem, not just for the Democratic Alliance and not just for the Western Cape, but nationally. This is also part of the issue or the issues that you will be addressing as the party here at this rally and also going forward.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the 21% that I spoke about, just over 47% of those are ages between 25 and 44. I mean, these are young people that we're talking about. But later, today, our federal leader will be joining us here today. We'll be outlining some of the plans that we have as the party to deal with this problem. But we must also add that there's a correlation, between unemployment, particularly for young people, and skills shortages and the level of education, etc. So we need to focus in education and make sure that as one of our strategic goals in the province, education become key for the people who are unemployed, to find employment. And for those people who can no longer go back to school, for example, we've got to make sure that we get the right skills for them to be employed. And one of the things that we are doing in the Western Cape is catch and match, where we are taking some of the graduates, who have qualifications and that do not speak, to the economic drivers in the Western Cape. Through our skills and works program, we are taking these people and also placing them, in the
industries and sectors that are driving the economy so that they can get the right skills for them to find employment. So these are some of the things that we are doing as Democratic Alliance to make sure that we deal with this problem of unemployment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bonginkosi Madikizela, the acting leader of the Democratic Alliance here in the Western Cape, just highlighting some of the issues that will be addressed at this Workers' Day rally and also some of the issues affecting the youth when it comes to unemployment, not just in the Western Cape, but also nationally. Now, we are expecting the leader of the Democratic Alliance, Mr. Mmusi Maimane, to address this Workers' Day rally very shortly. Behind me on the stadium, in the stands, you can see quite a number of people have come out, have taken time out of a long weekend and also a public holiday to come and listen to the DA leader, Mmusi Maimane, and all the DA leaders here at the stadium at the moment, addressing the issues, celebrating the hard-won gains since 1994 when it comes to workers' rights, but also highlighting what more needs to be done to, among others, address the about 26% unemployment in South Africa, as well as the high number of youth unemployment here in the province and also countrywide.
Thank you, Vanessa. That's Vanessa Puna, reporter in the Western Cape, giving us that update. Now, with May Day events taking place across the country today, the rights of the workers are being reviewed. Now, we are talking about all these issues with Mr. Leon Lowe. He is the Executive Director of the Free Market Foundation, is joining us in studio now. We talked earlier about unions and political parties, and we're also conducting a poll today, Mr. Lowe. Your thoughts on that, and should unions be affiliated to or linked to political parties?
Well, of course, they should be free to be. Also, political parties could affiliate with business organizations or church groups or sports federations or whatever. But is it a good idea? That's a different question. The ANC, COSATU, SACP alliance should have been dissolved when their common enemy disappeared. It made no logic since then, and it has harmed the ANC and COSATU, because they can't make up their mind. What are they? Is the ANC in government, or is it in civil society? Is the union in government or civil society? So it makes them schizophrenic and confused and bipolar. And the only beneficiary of that alliance has been the SACP, which is a small little party that's never had a single vote and has a third to a half of all the senior positions in government and the cabinet. So it has been the big beneficiary and cannibalized COSATU and the ANC. So it's a bad idea for them, both as a practical matter of politics. They're suffering from the fact that they tried to keep this alliance going long after its shelf life had expired, and it's busy dissolving. And the former president, Kgalema Motlanthe, has even said that it no longer exists, which I think is true. I think for practical purposes, they should now actually stop the pretense that there is a real alliance. There isn't one.
Is it then perhaps refreshing that the new South African Federation of Trade Unions has come out strong with their launch of around 750,000 members? Some analysts say that they are set to take over COSATU. What's your view on this? And is that perhaps the aim, or should their aim be on workers' rights as they identified as such?
The aim of unions ought to be workers representing their members, just as business organizations should represent business, and church groups should organize their religious parties, and sports federations, the members of so on. So they must do their job, and they should get out of politics and into worker representation. And in doing so, the way they have spoken is very, very encouraging, which is they are deeply concerned about the unemployed. Just imagine this. You talk about them having, I forget what the figure is, 600,000 or 700,000 estimated members. Yeah. There are 8 million unemployed, maybe 9 million unemployed people. And if those people all had jobs, those unions would all be 2 or 3 or 4 times bigger. So there's nobody with a better interest in getting the unemployment problem solved than unions. Their members will increase, their power and relevance and significance will be increased. In economics, when there's unemployment, it's what's called a buyer's market. In other words, when lots of people are trying to sell something, labor, and few people trying to buy it, that's in the interests of the employer. What you want for the employee is a seller's market, where there is lots of demand for labor, a shortage of labor, and lots of employers struggling to find workers. That is when workers' rights will rise, and that is why they are absolutely correct to focus on unemployment. The strange thing for them and for any union is if you have a minimum wage, which they all say they want, you increase unemployment. What the union should want is to have the maximum number of people employed. To get that, you want policies that lead to people creating jobs, employing people. That, strangely enough, again, for a union, is a pro-business policy. You want policies that make it good to be in business, therefore good to employ people. You want competition for labour, which will drive up wages and improve working conditions, more than any legislation will do. So what unions ought to do is focus on how to solve the unemployment problem, and the answer to that is solve the shortage of investment and business problem, and the answer to that is cut the size and functions of government. We need radical economic growth in South Africa.
Instead of radical economic transformation?
Well, at the moment we have radical economic stagnation, which is actually our problem. So transformation means growth. And there's nothing better for transformation than being a rich country. We want to be rich.
In 30 seconds, Mr. Lowe, is there anything that workers can really celebrate today?
Yes, I think we must actually appreciate that whilst there's a lot to lament and weep over, unemployment, working conditions that are still not satisfactory in many places, but the living standards of South Africa's workers have risen spectacularly since '94. We should celebrate that fact. It is indicated by all sorts of things, all the objective data. If anyone wants to see it, you look at the 20-year review downloadable from the Presidency's website, and you will see that workers in South Africa, those who have jobs, have had fantastic improvements in living conditions, and even workers who haven't have better infrastructure, have better social grants, have better access to welfare, education, healthcare, and so on. So there is a lot to celebrate, and we should celebrate it. But that doesn't mean that we need to neglect what has to be done.
But we should accommodate the unemployed.
The biggest priority of all is the unemployed.
Mr. Lowe, I thank you so much for your time and joining us here in studio.
My pleasure.
That was Mr. Leon Lowe. He's from the Free Market Foundation, the Executive Director. They're telling us or giving us his thoughts on the issues on Workers' Day. So what are your thoughts? What are some of the challenges that is afflicting you as a worker today in South Africa? I'd like to get your thoughts on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook page. Meanwhile, South African Communist Party General Secretary Bladen Nzimande says the calls for President Jacob Zuma to step down was not an easy decision to make. Speaking at the Chris Hani Memorial Lecture in Boksburg, Nzimande said that the SACP should not be expected to protect the ruling party.
Reiterating the call for President Jacob Zuma to step down.
Both the party and COSATU, they have come to a very difficult decision to say the president must step down. It's not something that we took lightly. It's because we were of the view that part of dealing with some of the problems that we are having, he must assist us by stepping down.
Addressing scores of supporters, Nzimande criticized government's handling of state capture.
You can't say the Guptas are an alternative to monopoly capital. In fact, the Guptas and their behavior has become the most immediate thing to deal with in order to defend our capacity to engage or fight monopoly capital.
Former Ekurhuleni Mayor Mondli Gungubele says the ANC operates differently now to what was envisioned by its forebearers. As political parties brace themselves for a vote of no confidence against President Zuma, Mondli Gungubele called for introspection.
The Gupta issue is a national question. It's a question of the nation. A sensible political party must find a program of clarifying it to the nation.
The party says it's time it focused on the SACP as a movement and grows itself. Hundreds of members ended the event by visiting Hani's grave. Lopangalamu, SABC News, in Ekurhuleni.
Now, a teenager who was allegedly killed for stealing sunflowers on a farm near Kolini in the northwest has been identified as the 16-year-old Mahlomola Mashweu. The boy's parents have been tracked down after a week-long search. The killing sparked violent protest in the area.
Scenes of a war zone as a community demanded justice for an unknown boy. After a week-long battle, the perpetrators have been arrested. And the boy and his family reunited for the last time. As the family, we went a long time looking for our son, but we're very grateful that we found him and just request time to organize ourselves. The two farmers, Peter Doorevart, 27, and Philip Schutter, 34, who are accused of Mosweu's murder, have been remanded in police custody until their formal bail application on the 9th of May. The provincial government has appealed to residents to allow the law to take its course. Arrangements are being made to assist the boy's family with funeral arrangements.
And we want to urge the people of Colini to allow the law to take its course. We condemn racism in whatever form, and we must deal with racism, all of us in this country.
The provincial task team will be meeting with the community to restore peace in the area. Sintle English, SABC News, Colini.
As we celebrate Workers' Day today on May Day, the global workforce is set to go through a transformation as we head into a more digitized age. However, this change is already causing much crisis and dilemma as some countries, like South Africa, continue to monitor a rise in unemployment and retrenchments as the need for mass human labor is no longer as relevant. The International Labour Organization has estimated that there will be close to 200 million people without work by the end of this year. But to tell us more about how we can adapt, how we can change, we are joined in studio by entrepreneur Terry Behan. A very good morning to you, Squire, and welcome.
Thank you.
Now, this job crisis, labour in general, is it a job crisis only in South Africa or is it globally?
Not at all. I mean, it's definitely a global phenomenon. We've seen over the years, or over the centuries, a move from sort of farming to the industrial era to the mass manufacturing era. And jobs evolve and change all the time, and the nature of jobs change all the time, but what's happening now, those jobs are simply just not being replaced in the way they used to be in the past.
They call it the fourth industrial revolution right now where we are in. Is that a crisis for many people or many workers that currently has got labour as one of their key components of income?
It definitely is. I mean, the fourth industrial revolution kind of came out of the World Economic Forum last year with Klaus Schwab kind of saying this is really the crisis we have to solve in the next 50 years. But it's not necessarily just a labour issue. I mean, we think traditionally about labour, we think about semi-skilled workers, factory workers, people in the mines. It's affecting people at all levels of the economy, all the way up to senior executives. They're all being affected by this process.
What industries do you see will go through this transformation period?
Well, we're seeing it already. I mean, you see, I think what we're seeing is any job that has a high level of predictability and routine attached to it is at risk. And that can refer to jobs that maybe take place on the factory floor, but you can also talk about things that happen in things like a call center or in a financial services industry or in a whole range of other sectors like the automotive sector as well.
Yes, because you see those little components, those robots already working, putting the components together. So what is going to be the job of the ordinary guy putting the light in at the end of the process? So there's going to be job losses, we would presume?
Yeah, I mean, I think the shift is not going to rebalance itself. So while we're used to seeing losses and then new industries spring up, we're seeing new industries spring up that don't require people, but they're pretty big. And so those losses are going to continue into the future.
What are those new industries where you will see this growth, where you have the sort of labor-intensive jobs falling away, and you have this new digital age where people can go into?
I think a topical one in South Africa is always around Uber. So people sort of complain, the taxi industry's complained quite a lot around how Uber has replaced them and taken away their jobs. And in reality, it's put more jobs on the table.
Yeah.
But in the next 10 years, those jobs are going to go because those cars are going to be automated. So you'll see in San Francisco at the moment, there has a project underway to open up a series of automated corridors in the city, in the Bay Area. which will be for driverless cars. And that's going to start, I think, kicks off in 2018. So in the next 10 years, you're going to start seeing those kind of jobs being replaced by robots or by sort of automated cars as well. That's one example. I mean, other examples are really in the financial services sector. So you pick up the phone, you talk to someone in a call center, you wait 10, 20 minutes. It's a very challenging experience. There's hundreds of people in that call center who are on the other end of the phone. Their jobs are at risk. They're going to be replaced by what we call chatbots. So chatbots are sort of automated learning facilities or automated learning programs who can learn how to respond to people's requests. So you'll think you're talking to another human being, but you're not. You're talking to a robot.
My goodness gracious. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs there because call centers has created a lot of jobs in this country. But we also already know that journalists and accountants are even in the firing line in relation to the digital age. So what can we do in relation to using smart technology, not to change the entire system, but to assist us and make sure that at least there's not that much jobs being shed? I
think it requires an investment. I mean, we talk about how people can reskill themselves and how industries can reskill themselves. I think it's incumbent on I mean, there's a lot of talk today about labor organizations. And whether it's government or labor organizations or it's a combined effort, is really to sort of look at what are the sort of sectors that are going to grow in the future. How can we invest in those sectors? And the automation of areas like agriculture is one of the massive growth areas in the developing world globally. Technology is helping evolve that a lot with something we call sort of IoT sensors. So sensors that might predict changes in the soil, changes in the weather, and allow a farmer and his team to be able to react to that quicker and give a bit better yield of the crop. And we see that taking place in Africa before it takes place anywhere else.
Which countries in Africa is taking that particular lead?
We've seen Nigeria is a lot of growth in the agricultural sector. They're starting to sort of look at IoT sensor networks where they can roll them out into the farms and they can sort of start to predict conditions and as a result, can increase crop yield and growth. That's definitely the case. The other big areas are in logistics, how we transport things. Rwanda's got an ongoing project at the moment in sort of setting up drone ports. So they'll start to sort of transport goods, high value, lightweight goods via drones between different ports in Central Africa, specifically Rwanda. And that's because they've stepped back and they've said, the cost of infrastructure, the cost of laying down new roads is really expensive. Let's leapfrog the status quo. Let's look at drones as a way of transporting high-value goods, and let's invest in that.
That is definitely thinking fourth industrial revolution. How do we prepare our youngsters for this new revolution?
I think that's a really interesting question. And I think there's two parts to it. There is what is available to them in the educational sector, and the educational sector is way behind the curve because the education sector is still trying to produce graduates for jobs that used to exist and not necessarily for jobs that are going to exist. But if you look at areas of interest, areas where there is definitely going to be growth in the future, I would encourage a lot more people to sort of, again, look at agriculture and this idea of urban agriculture, what they call vertical agriculture. So buildings being either reclaimed or purpose-built that are going to be sort of vertical farms. So 10, 20 stories of farms in downtown Johannesburg or Cape Town. That's the one area. The other area is in what we call sort of artificial learning. So helping computers learn to interact with people a lot better. And that sort of human interaction process is quite a big growth area. And another one I think is going to be in what we would call sort of mass manufactured handmade products. This idea of you can sort of mass manufacture something with a low labor cost, incentivizing that labor from a profit point of view, but in producing something unique. I think the world has reacted to this sort of automation process globally and wants things on their kitchen table, in their lounges, in their homes that are handmade, that feels like it was made by a human being. Yes. That's a big growth area as well, and something South Africa could do well in.
Terry, as usual, thank you so much for keeping us updated with technology as we continue into the fourth industrial revolution. That was entrepreneur Terry Behan talking to us about transformation as we head into a more digitized age. Are you ready for it? And if you're not, please reskill, he says. We'll take a break. We'll be right back after that.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Warm greetings from the sports desk. My name is Marumo Kekana. Let's update your sports news. Defending Absa Premiership and top of the log Sundowns will lock horns with Bidvest Vets in a game that potentially the PSL decided this afternoon. Downs lead PSL log standings while Vets are third and 2 points behind Downs. Both teams won 2-0 against their respective opponents on Friday. The last time the two teams met, Downs won by 2-0, and Vets note that a loss will dent their title aspirations, if not dash them completely. After going through a temporary lapse of form when they went 5 games without a win, the Brazilians are rolling along at the moment and picking up 5 successive crucial victories without conceding a goal. In a bottom of the log battle, Dikwena Platinum Stars lost by 2-0 away to Ajax Cape Town. Meanwhile, Bloemfontein Celtic and Baroka FC played to a 1-0 draw in the relegation battle in Polokwane. Only 4 points separate the bottom 6 teams on the log.
Talking about home form, here's a chance! Beautifully done! Beautifully done!
Itholeke amakhanda ke lapha yena ke uLakeya hayi khona wasafuna ukuyishayela lapha ke uLakeya
Thokozisi Dube, how painful will this be if they've got to concede? Well, here's Lakay. There's a goal. Lakay, something out of nothing.
And the man who's going to give them support is Rio Mere.
Nice looking pass and early. Take to 4, Ajax Cape Town, that's exactly what they needed. It's Grant Muggerman, the 18-year-old. I call him the Prince of Pharaoh. It's Graham, and they've been able to do that, get in behind the Platinum Stars defense time over again. Deflection, hits the back of the net. I mentioned...
Now, of course, after all the action, and now this is how the log standing looks presently. As you can see, the defending champions, Mamelodi Sundowns, is sitting comfortably on 50 points, of course, on the second spot, followed by Cape Town City, who are on 49. Bidvest Vets sitting on 48 points, and the other ones will be playing against Mamelodi Sundowns. So that one is a top draw. You don't want to miss that clash. Of course, on the fourth spot, Kaizer Chiefs on 46, followed by Super Sport United, Polokwane City, Maritzburg, and finally, Orlando Pirates cracking it to the top 8 of the season, this 2016-2017 season. Moving further afield, Chelsea remain on course for the Premier League title after a 3-0 win at Everton left them 4 points clear of the second place Tottenham Hotspur, who beat local rivals Arsenal by 2-0.
Matic, Pedro. Oh, screamer! What a hit from Pedro! Hazard, near corner, and in! Costa. Fabregas. Willian! Hello! Where's he come from? And now Eriksson, and Eriksson weaving through, and Ali! Deep breaths. White Horse Kane at right half lane.
Back by Derone, Gibson in there. Negredo can't get his shot away. And he's been forced in! On Middlesbrough! Lifts one in there. Jesus has an equaliser, and Manchester City.
And moving to other news, Mercedes Valtteri Bottas claimed his maiden F1 win after fighting off Ferrari Sebastian Vettel for victory in the Russian Grand Prix. Bottas, starting from third, took the lead of the line when he swept past both Ferraris of Vettel and Kimi Räikkönen, and then withstood a late charge from Vettel to secure a richly deserved win.
It's lights out and away we go then. Sebastian Vettel leads them away. Lewis Hamilton gets a decent start, slips almost into the path of Kimi Raikkonen there, and he's got 3 abreast with a Red Bull to one side of Daniel Ricciardo. Sebastian Vettel racing away then down towards the first turn, and Valtteri Bottas has got into the lead ahead of Vettel, ahead of Raikkonen, Hamilton and Verstappen, Ricciardo, and then comes Felipe Massa.
Super soft tyre, the red stripe tyre, was instructive actually and decisive, and they've seen that Mercedes, this car, certainly on the other side.
Behind Bottas. Confirm, we are behind Bottas. How did we end up behind him? Why we didn't stop earlier? He was leading the race, Kimi. Okay, I thought that they were the other way around.
I thought it was Hamilton out front.
Sebastian Vettel will need to clear Felipe Massa into turn 4, and he can't quite do it. Well, not cleanly anyway, manages to get past eventually, but that will have cost Sebastian Vettel time. It has. It's taken him out of that 1 second buffer. That was time for a man from Finland who's about to become the 107th different winner in Formula One for the first time ever. Valtteri Bottas wins a Grand Prix. It's Bottas who takes it in Russia. Sebastian Vettel comes home in 2nd place, and Kimi Raikkonen will complete the podium. And it is smiles all around for the man who replaced Nico Rosberg, the world champion, who was parachuted into the Mercedes team. And after 3 races where it didn't all go his way, it has come good today in Sochi.
David Warner scored a sensational 126 of 59 balls as the Sunrisers Hyderabad claim a dominating win over the table-topping Calcutta Knight Riders. The Knight Riders and the Mumbai Indians remain at the top of the table with 14 points, but the Sunrisers were now breathing down their necks, just 1 point behind.
Oh, there we go. Is that the first? You betcha. Yes, bank maximum straight down the ground.
Unstoppable, David Warner.
Will Warner be the first? Will they push? Will they push? I think they will. They're going. Home, yes, there it is. The skipper comes good tonight. Brilliant.
Not friendly, just straight to him. Directing it, he could be in trouble. That could be the first wicket. Up goes the finger.
Could it be out? Yes! It's the captain. The Vivo perfect catch of the match. Good. A long way in the air. And he makes it look easy.
Is infectious. Does he get it? I'm not sure he gets all of it.
And finally, South Africa's Rafael Sekhodi from Gauteng has won in the 2017 edition of the JG Zuma Marathon at Greytown in the KwaZulu-Natal in a time of 2 hours, 27 minutes, 40 seconds. It was a sweet victory for the runner from Johannesburg, who earlier this month missed out on a national title after being disqualified in the Marathon Championship, which was incorporated into the Durban City Marathon. Sekhodi transgendered the license rule violation as he did not have the front number on his vest. The women's title went to Lesotho's Mamoralo Joka in 2 hours, 52 minutes and 47 seconds. And that's how we come to the end of your first installment of Newsroom Sport. Up next, Ndawo Yandona Azitakazi Tuani standing by with your weather update.
Much thanks to Marumo Kekana and warm welcome. Yes, let's protect our forests because they help regulate our rainfall, maintain our soil quality, and again absorb the carbon dioxide, which also helps us with climate change. Now, let's take a look at today's weather. We're still expecting 30% chance of showers over the eastern parts of South Africa, mostly Limpopo, Mpumalanga, going to Swaziland and the northern parts of KwaZulu-Natal. It will be partly cloudy over the interior, going to the eastern parts. Over Western Cape today, 30% chance of showers, and over the far southern parts of Eastern Cape, the far southern parts of Northern Cape as well. We're still expecting partly cloudy skies for tomorrow, with 30% chance of showers also sitting over Gauteng, some parts of northwest Mpumalanga, Limpopo, KwaZulu-Natal, and also over Eastern Cape, the whole of Swaziland as well. Southern parts of Mozambique, going to Zambia, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, we're still expecting 30% chance of showers, but over some parts of Tanzania and Somalia, we are expecting 60% chance of thunder showers for today. Your temperatures will be at 25 for Pretoria, 21 Bulugwane, 25 Bloemfontein and DR, Sutherland at 23 with 30% chance of showers, and also showers expected over Port Elizabeth with a maximum of 31. 22 will be your maximum over Mbombela, and 30% chance of showers can be expected. Zimbabwe, partly cloudy skies over the northern parts, mostly sunny over Bulawayo, maximum of 19 degrees, 22 Harare, 31 Nampula with 30% chance of thunder showers, Beira at 25, Victoria Falls sunny, and Maung Windhoek at 24, Luderitz sitting at a maximum of 25 with partly cloudy skies, Gaborone 24 and just partly cloudy. Victoria, a maximum of 30 and 30% chance of showers, and Port Louis at 27, 21 over Antananarivo. Moving towards the interior, we are expecting partly cloudy skies and isolated showers over the interior, going to the northern parts of Congo, Bangui at a maximum of 35 degrees and 34 over Juba. Mombasa at a maximum of 30% chance of showers. Lilongwe at a maximum of 26, mostly sunny skies expected for today, and Luanda at a maximum of 31. Over the northern parts of Africa, we're still expecting clear skies over the interior of the Sahara Desert, but over the northern parts, very isolated showers can be expected over some parts of Algeria, Libya, Tunisia, and Morocco. Moving towards Niger, mostly sunny skies to clear skies over the interior. Nigeria, 30% chance of showers from the interior going to the southern parts, and Cameroon as well. Central Africa Republic, partly cloudy skies over most parts, but going towards the western parts, you can expect 60% chance of showers for today. Liberia as well, covered with 30% chance of showers for today. Tomorrow, it will be sunny again over the Sahara Desert, but over the northern parts, some parts of Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, and Morocco still covered by 30% chance of showers. Along the coastal regions, 30% chance of showers, and going to the interior of Congo. Towards Ethiopia, 60% chance of showers over the interior and some parts of Somalia. That's all from the weather desk. Ndayendo.
Well, a very good morning and welcome to AM News Live at 10:00 hours across all Central Africa regions.
A fitting send-off for a revolutionary giant, a life dedicated in service of the people.
The result means that the Swallows are out of the ABC Municipal League and drop to the amateur fourth tier of South African football, the SAB League.
Tune in on AM News every Saturday and Sunday from 10 hours.
And among my friends, one was married to a rapist. One found out the man beside her was raping her daughters. One was touched all over by the man next door when she was 5. One was followed on the streets. One found pornography on her lover's computer.
In an effort to try and understand how rape is perceived in South Africa, Michelle Harting wrote a thought-provoking book entitled I'm the Girl Who Was Raped. Michelle is also a victim of sexual violence, and she is here with me today to talk about her book. Welcome to Morning Live, Michelle.
Thank you for having me.
Let's perhaps start with you telling us why you decided to publish this book for the whole world to see.
I think you can say when rape happens to a woman, it's a very personal experience. But like they say in feminism, the personal is political. So a lot of people, when they are raped, they don't want to talk about their experiences. I had the opposite effect. I desperately wanted to tell people what happened to me, to have these difficult conversations, and just make what rape really does to people known.
Just give us a synopsis of the book.
The synopsis of the book is when I was 23 years old, I did my psychology honors thesis, as you mentioned, and male discourses about rape, the way men talk about rape. The final day of my psychology honors thesis, we had a celebration to celebrate that we survived the year, the whole group of psychology honors students in Muizenberg in Cape Town. That evening, while we were celebrating, one of my friends wanted to talk to me. And I think I immediately knew what she wanted to talk to me about, because in the process of putting together my thesis, it had evoked very strong reactions from women who wanted to share their story with me. So we went to the beach to talk about her experience, and at the beach we were robbed, assaulted and raped.
Your thesis, when you presented it, it started with you saying a woman born in South Africa has a greater chance of being raped than learning how to read.
Yes.
And then that very night that you presented your thesis, it happened to you.
Yes.
How did that make you feel?
It's disbelief, I think. It's that irony that life is stranger than fiction. I think with my thesis, giving my presentation, it was a very victorious feeling. And then to be smashed down that evening, it was horrible.
When you were writing this book, you had to recollect and relive some of the bad memories that happened that night. How was the process like?
I think it was a very, very difficult but also very healing process. Like I said, healing for me is circular, so a lot of the time there would be something I thought I had dealt with, and then I would read a little part in the book and I'd realize, oh, okay, no, I'm not okay with that part yet.
You will find that in most instances, the victim is blamed. What advice do you have for victims who such behaviors are directed towards them?
I think it's a symptom of our society that makes use of rape culture, where we turn our focus to the victim. We are so preoccupied with telling the woman where she should go, what she should be doing, what she shouldn't be doing, that we forget about the perpetrator. We forget that the perpetrator chose to rape. And I think if that person can just stay true to herself and remember, no matter what she did, it was always the perpetrator's choice to rape her.
There's a lot of stigma when it comes to rape, and we find that a lot of rape cases go unreported. Does this play a role in perpetuating rape culture?
I think a quote that really sums up rape culture for me is, and I can't remember exactly where I read it, but it said, if rape was about sex, 2-year-olds wouldn't get raped. If rape was about sex, 76-year-olds wouldn't get raped. People make the mistake of thinking that rape is a sex act, and then a sex act is something you can participate in. Rape is about power, and when someone exerts their power over you, it's not something you can participate in.
In the book, you talk about how myths promote false accounts of what rape is. Can you tell us more about that?
I think the myth, and something I experienced most strongly in my journey, was just the shame that you feel as though you did something wrong. You feel like it's your fault, and you somehow feel less. You feel like a lesser person because now you've been defiled in this way, and you're not worth as much as you would have been if this didn't happen to you. So for me, I think something, and it's also, I know the emotion most rape survivors experience is just that deep shame that you have to carry by yourself.
Has your psychology background played a role in terms of helping you to deal with what happened to you?
I say this a lot now, as I don't think healing is something that ever ends. I think in Hollywood movies they always portray healing as something bad happens, you go through a horrible time and then it's over. That's not how I experience healing. I believe healing is circular. So you go through the same things again and again, and sometimes you only go through that thing 10 years later, but it's never done. Even as I'm sitting here, this is just a different part of my healing process. But yeah, every step you take is a step forward. I asked them what they did to protect themselves from rape. One said, I don't talk to strangers. I don't go out alone at night. I set my mobile phone to speed dial. I have my running shoes on.
1100 hours Central Africa time here on the Newsroom. I'm Elvis Presslin.
And from the sports desk, I'm Marumo Kekana.
Now we'll be with you until 12 o'clock today. We're celebrating and commemorating May Day today, an International Workers' Day, which was born from the industrial struggle for an 8-hour day. So as we commemorate this day, we're asking you that question on your screen right now. What challenges are workers still facing in the workplace? That's the question that we pose to you. Let us know what's on your mind. Let's see if there's any comments coming through, Marumo, from the question that we've posed, to see if there's any from any of the comments on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. But it seems like we have our poll up right now.
Poll up, and the question we're asking, should unions be linked to political parties? And 402 votes in already, 86% saying no and only 14% saying yes. The number is also increasing on people who are saying yes now. At some point we were sitting on what, 12-8?
12-8%, yes. So a lot of you are saying no, but the number is increasing on the yes. 14% are saying yes, they should be politically affiliated. So that's the poll that we posed to you. Let's take a look at what you have to say around the question, as well as on the poll, if political parties or unions for that matter should be linked to political parties. Let's see if there's any tweets coming in.
This one coming in from Bonagele saying, we're looking forward to transformation of a private security sector, bring back dignity of our security officers and let them be respected.
This one from Vusi says, the world worker, #slave.
Doctor saying that no, even today I still earn same salary for years now.
Mara, why, doctor? That's the case. Are you speaking to your employer about it? And Tombi says it's a lack of transformation in this country.
Tabiso saying, please assist security officers. They also form part of this country's workers. They work for nothing.
Now, these are some of your comments. Please keep them coming. We'll read them as we continue and as we continue during the course of the program. But right now, let's get down to business, Marumo, and take a look at your news headlines. President Jacob Zuma will deliver the COSATU's May Day rally in Bloemfontein despite opposition from some of the Labour Federation's affiliates. The South African Communist Party General Secretary Bladen Zimande reiterates the party's call for President Jacob Zuma to step down. And the teenager who was killed for allegedly stealing sunflowers on a farm near Kolini in the northwest has been identified as a 16-year-old Mahlomola Moshweu. Those are your headlines, but before we get there to the news, let's find out from Marumo Kekana what's happening on the sports front.
Of course, the top of the log and defending champions Mamelodi Sundowns will play away against their third place, the Bidvest Vets, in what could potentially be the PSL title decider. And Tottenham Hotspur won the North London derby by beating rivals Arsenal by 2-0 and closing the gap to 4 points, keeping their title hopes alive. We'll be back with more sports stories, but for now we take you to the main desk where Elvis is standing by with news making headlines across the world.
Thank you, Marumo. Now, despite opposition from some COSATU affiliates, President Jacob Zuma is expected to address the Labour Federation's main May Day rally in Bloemfontein today. Some COSATU affiliates say that the decision to allow the president to address the rally is not consistent with the Labour Federation's call for him to step down. COSATU in the Western Cape says it will use May Day to highlight a number of issues. The Labour Federation is planning to march to 3 locations today, including Parliament. Several other rallies will take place across the country. Trade union NUMSA and the newly formed Labour Federation SAFTU will observe Workers' Day in Durban. Meanwhile, DA leader Musi Maimane will address a May Day rally today at Blue Downs in the Western Cape. The newly launched trade union grouping in South Africa, the South African Federation of Trade Unions, SAFTU, promises to be a voice for the growing number of unorganized and marginalized workers in the country. Historically, trade unions in South Africa have played a significant role in shaping the political landscape, especially during the struggle against apartheid. SABC News spoke to SAFTU General Secretary Zwelinzima Vavi.
Reiterating the call for President Jacob Zuma to step down.
Both the party and COSATU, they have come to a very difficult decision to say the president must step down. It's not something that we took lightly. It's because we were of the view that part of dealing with some of the problems that we are having, he must assist us by stepping down.
Addressing scores of supporters, Nzimande criticized government's handling of state capture.
You can't say the Guptas are an alternative to monopoly capital. In fact, the Guptas and their behavior has become the most immediate thing to deal with in order to defend our capacity to engage or fight monopoly capital.
Former Ekurhuleni Mayor Mondli Gungubele says the ANC operates differently now to what was envisioned by its forebearers. As political parties brace themselves for a vote of no confidence against President Zuma, Mondli Gungubele called for introspection.
The Gupta issue is a national question. It's a question of the nation. A sensible political party must find a program of clarifying it to the nation.
The party says it's time it focused on the SACP as a movement and grows itself. Hundreds of members ended the event by visiting Hani's grave. Lopangalamu, SABC News, in Ekurhuleni.
Now, SABC Simpiwe Makanya is at a march at Curry's Fountain, where he's attending SAFTU's first May Day rally. As you know, members of the newly launched Labour Federation will march to the City Hall to mark Workers' Day there. SAFTU's biggest affiliate will also celebrate 30 years since it was established in 1987. That is NUMSA. Simpiwe Makanya is on standby to talk to the NUMSA President, Andrew Chirwa. A very good morning to you, Simpiwe. Before you talk to your guest, what is the latest there since we last talked to you at 9 o'clock?
Well, a very good morning to you, Alvis, and good morning to the viewers at home. Well, the numbers are still, people are still rather making their way to the main venue where they will gather before they march to the City Hall. You can see just behind me, a few of them have already arrived, and I'm told that there are some buses which are also on their way to this main venue. Also, police, you can see a number of police that actually are part of this event. And as you rightfully stated, Elvis, it's World Workers' Day. And to outline some of the issues that still face workers in this country, I'm now joined by the president of NUMSA, Mr. Andrew Chirwa. Mr. Chirwa, thank you very much for your time. The influence that unions have in terms of making the lives of workers better, how is that?
Look, there's no doubt that the trade union movement has been very weak for some time. There's been a process to deliberately weaken trade union movement all over the world, and South Africa is not exception. And that has been happening at the back of outsourcing, at the back of casualization, and informalizing workers, so that workers can quickly be short exchange, can quickly be fired, give them short contract, no job stability. All those processes affected the strength of unions all over the world. And that's why we have now established the new federation. It's one of the things that we think that if we are to unite workers to be a force, to be reckoned, we must begin to deal with the whole question of outsourcing of workers, of subcontracting, to ensure that the main employers employs workers, to ensure that labor broken system in which workers are actually turned into slaves, where people are getting paid to do nothing but to trade with human beings, is destroyed. And that's why we're simply saying in the new federation now that 76% of workers that is out there is outside the unions. Majority of them, I'm sure around 80% of them, these are the workers that we're talking about that are not given any job security as we speak. That's our target if we must build strong unions in this country.
Mr. Chirwa, one would say that obviously NUMSA has been in existence for 30 years. Yesterday you celebrated your 30th anniversary. But the question is, how are you going to deal with some of the demands that you have raised, like the issue of labor brokers, for instance? It's been on the agenda for quite some time since you were part of COSATU, but hence you've not actually succeeded in actually addressing that issue.
Look, if there are lessons that we have learned, or brutal lessons that we have learned in our whole time in COSATU, is that there is no way in which organizations of workers like trade unions can be sleeping in the same bed with the ruling elite, with the bosses, with the ruling party, but at the same time being able to make real gains for workers. Unfortunately, we have been in a booby trap in which organizations of workers, the biggest COSATU, has been trapped for many years. It is still trapped today. That's why when we're supposed to be achieving real programs or changes for workers, like the issue of labor broking, which is one of the key programs of any labor movement, instead we get compromises. So my point is, workers have been compromised under the arrangement of political alignment with political parties in this country. We simply saying here, we're calling for a different type of organization for workers. Organization in which workers themselves will be the ones who decide what is a priority, what is not a priority, what is the program, what is not a program, how to take forward the program of workers to ensure that we achieve those benefits. So we've learned lesson. We're organizing outside, it's about workers, nothing else. Any other things become secondary. We're going to pick up all those struggles that we've lost under COSATU. We're saying now the new federation will be in the forefront of those struggles, will be moving door to door, visiting employers and asking them why are they still having workers who are more than a year, more than 2 years still in contract? Why are they not being made permanent? That's the struggle that we think that as SAFTU, if we are to make any different, we'll have to be prepared to dirty our hands, to challenge government, but most importantly to visit employers one by one to ensure that exploitation and discrimination of workers comes to an end in this country.
Mr. Chirwa, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
All right, that was the president of NUMSA, Mr. Andrew Chirwa, outlining some of the demands that they have together as the federation of unions, and also as the union itself, NUMSA. But we will be monitoring the situation as it unfolds here. We are expecting the program to start at about 11, we are told, but we'll update you, Alvis, as soon as the proceedings get underway.
Thank you so much. Coming to us live from Durban there with the latest update on the SAFTU March. The main question, though, we're speaking about Workers' Day and May Day today, and the question that we pose is, will robotics take over the workforce in the future? Now, that is the question being asked by millions of people around the globe. But smart technology has a vital role to play in the modern workspace, making our lives easier and business more sufficient, like it's case in point right now with my computer not working. And with the addition of social media, job seekers will certainly need to have some sort of tech-savvy skills. However, the digital world does have a dark side too. Now, to talk to us about that and tell us more, we are joined by the Managing Director of Worldwide Works, Arthur Goldstuck. Arthur, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Elvis.
They say it's the beginning and the start of the fourth industrial revolution, and a number of jobs are going to be shed in time to come. Your thoughts on that?
We've been seeing this happening for a couple of decades already. Mm-hmm. In fact, as soon as they started bringing automation into vehicle manufacturing and robotic tools and arms, mm-hmm. Helping to build vehicles, that was in fact the arrival of robotics on a massive scale. Mm-hmm. And you're seeing it in numerous areas of manufacturing. So it's with us already. It's already making a big impact. But the biggest impact is in productivity, not so much in job losses. Mm-hmm. But if you look at job losses, of course, that is going to happen, and it has been happening. If you look over the past decade, you'll find that a large proportion of jobs have, in fact, been taken over by robots. Mm-hmm. So it's not a coming threat. It's something that we're living in at the moment. Mm-hmm. And if you're not seeing it transforming an industry right now, or resulting in massive job losses in an industry right now, chances are still going to be a long time before it happens, because the process has been underway for some time. But there are two sides to that story.
Yes, tell me. Something
I should just mention is statistics are showing so far in countries that have introduced robots in the workforce in the last 5 years or so, those that are the most competitive have not shed jobs to the extent of those that aren't competitive. So, for example, Germany has twice as many robots per worker as the United States. and yet the amount of job losses has been far lower in Germany. And that speaks to a more competitive economy. So the more competitive the economy, the less likely robots are going to have a massive impact on job losses.
In South Africa, we're not as developed as Europe or even Germany for that matter. What impact will the fourth industrial revolution have on this country?
In the short term, it's only going to be in large manufacturing, like in vehicle assembly and the like, and vehicle manufacture. In general, the robots are still too expensive to justify replacing workers with a robot. There are various statistics that show how much you would have to pay a worker to justify introducing robots. And generally speaking, it's not justifiable in South Africa in the short term. So workers don't have to worry about robots yet. Where they do have to worry is slightly higher level workers whose jobs involve certain decision making that can be taken over by robots. And the best example of that is stock trading. So that's not exactly a mass market a job, and it's not exactly a low level skill. It's a high end skill. But for stock trading, you can already see in many of the banks and investment houses where they had a dealer floor. Say 10 years ago, they might have had 40 people on that floor. Now they have 8 people doing the same work.
My
and more
goodness
efficiently.
gracious. So I won't be able to pick up my phone and speak to my broker anymore.
You can for now, but you'll probably pay a premium to speak to a human being.
South Africa, are we lagging behind from a technological perspective, and especially with the skills gap that we have in our country?
It depends on the sector. So the banking sector, for example, is world leading in terms of its use of technology. There's certain issues that still frustrate people terribly. Like, for example, you make a deposit or a transfer from one bank to another bank, it takes a day or two to reflect, whereas it should be instant. And that's inexplicable to people in this digital era. So certainly we can improve, but in most other sectors we're far behind. In retail, we're still almost in the Stone Ages compared to what's happening in some industrialized countries.
As a population, we have high number of unemployment. Education is lacking for a lot of people in this country. How do we adapt?
Education has to change. There's absolutely no question about that. And one of the fundamental things that has to happen is that maths and, let's say, arithmetic in the junior grades has to be taken far more seriously. We have to embark on a massive program of training teachers to teach in those subjects. And from there, we can move on to something like coding, because coding is going to be the mass market skill of the next few decades. If you don't come into the jobs market with a coding ability, you're already left behind. And that can start in grade school already, in kindergarten, because you can teach it through playing with building blocks. You can actually teach coding.
Now in South Africa, we also have a case in point where the match percentages has been lowered as well. Could that spell disaster for South Africa in relation to the digital age?
It's deeply problematic because essentially you're saying that the standards don't really apply. If anything, we should have higher standards, and we should be teaching the teachers to a higher level in order to bring the students up. We shouldn't be trying to engage in a race for the bottom. We should be aiming at the top.
Let's talk about social media and how business connect with that, and is that perhaps a new sphere where business should venture in for those who haven't as yet?
Businesses that have embraced social media are benefiting massively from it. At the very least, they understand what their customers want and also how to respond to their customers, almost spinning on their feet. If you imagine dribbling a soccer ball in a match and making those decisions as you're dribbling, that's how a business should be thinking. And social media allows them to think quickly like that because they can get instant feedback from a large number of customers. Those businesses that aren't in social media are playing it safe, and for now they're safe from criticism, but they're also completely safe from improvement of the business because they're not listening to the customer. And the customer is on social media. Every customer today is on social media.
And it's about a change of how you do business. It's how you talk to your customer. It's not the top-down approach anymore. It's a conversation, right?
Precisely. So businesses typically tend to think in terms of broadcasting to the customer, whereas the cutting-edge business is in a conversation with the customer.
Is that the only benefit that business have, or is there perhaps a dark side to social media as well for businesses?
There are very dark sides to social media, and that happens when people start using social media for abuse, for revenge, and for what they call trolling, which is trying to create a reaction by being extreme or expressing hate speech or any extremist speech, whether it's relating to a group of people or to a business. And businesses often don't know how to respond, and they often respond badly and drag themselves down in that way. But social media definitely is often used in a very destructive manner, and businesses have to be careful not to engage in that destructiveness.
Bizarre and strange occurrences we've seen even on Facebook, with a man shooting another man, killed him in the US, of course, live on Facebook, and there was also another story of 2 murders that have taken place already. How do business, such in the case of Facebook, monitor this and make sure that this does not happen?
Facebook is intensely engaged in trying to monitor that kind of thing and prevent it from happening, but they're not responsive enough. And I would point a finger at Google and Twitter as well. All 3 of them are too tolerant of bullying, of hate speech, and of violence on their channels. If you, for example, complain about hate speech on Facebook, typically you'll receive a response. It's all automated, and you receive a response much later saying, this does not violate our community standards. Well, if it doesn't, what does? And if they're tolerant at that level, you can see why it is so easy for people to get violent content across on Facebook. And then the ultimate form of that kind of content is people actually committing murder live on Facebook. So Facebook has to introduce far stronger policies and practices to prevent that kind of thing from being exposed to too many individuals.
But there's the other side of the coin, and that's the responsibility of the user as well.
I hear this argument often that it's both responsibility of Facebook and of the user. You and I probably have the level of responsibility that's required. But to say that everyone out there has to have the same responsibility is utopian thinking. People don't behave like that, especially when mob mentality starts coming into the picture and everyone wants to jump on the bandwagon and have their say. People stop acting responsibly. We would like people to act responsibly, but you also cannot impose it. Yes. You can't actually say, okay, everyone act responsibly, whereas you can say to Facebook, act responsibly. They don't have a choice in the matter. They're a business.
Your advice, Arthur, for workers out there today, celebrating Workers' Day, looking into the future, how should they prepare themselves for the digital age?
If you're still young or if you're still preparing for the working environment, one of the best things you can do is to learn how to code. If you can't learn how to code, if you don't have the mathematical ability or the interest in that area, at least start understanding what kind of jobs are going to be in demand in the future and see in what way you can prepare yourself for those jobs. Because from the lowest level to the highest level, you're going to find jobs of today are not going to be relevant tomorrow.
Arthur, thank you so much for your
Thanks,
time and
Elvis.
joining us here in studio. That was Arthur Goldstuck, of course, giving us the lowdown, as they say, the managing director of Worldwide Work. So if you're born before computers, they call it BC, get in touch, get ready. The 4th Industrial Revolution, he says, is already here. So let's move on now to other news. It's making news around the globe. Remember that we're also asking you that question in relation to Workers' Day today. We want to find out from you, what challenges are you facing? That's one of the challenges that we just spoke about. Digitization. I'm not going to try it again. But it's the 4th Industrial Revolution. Try it. And there's the question on your screen right now. What challenges are facing you? Let me know on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook page. Let's move on to other news now. The teenager was allegedly killed for stealing sunflowers on a farm near Kolini in the northwest has been identified as a 16-year-old Mahlomola Moshweu. The boy's parents have been tracked down after a week-long search. The killing sparked violent protest in the area.
Scenes of a war zone as a community demanded justice for an unknown boy. After a week-long battle, the perpetrators have been arrested. And the boy and his family reunited for the last time. As the family, we went a long time looking for our son, but we're very grateful that we found him and just request time to organize ourselves. The 2 farmers, Peter Dooravart, 27, and Philip Schutter, 34, who are accused of Mosweu's murder, have been remanded in police custody until their formal bail application on the 9th of May. The provincial government has appealed to residents to allow the law to take its course. Arrangements are being made to assist the boy's family with funeral arrangements.
And we want to urge the people of Kolini to allow the law to take its course. We condemn racism in whatever form. And we must deal with racism, all of us in this country.
The provincial task team will be meeting with the community to restore peace in the area. Sintle English, SABC News, Colini.
Well, we'll take a short break right now. We'll be right back after that. Stay tuned.
After a horrific accident, major questions were asked.
So step one, I asked myself, do I really want to die? And my answer to that was, I'm not sure. And then step two was, do I want my parents to bury me? And the answer to that was no.
Learning kept his brain in full action on how the brain works.
When I was in hospital, right, as I was saying, to catch up with my peers, I started to become obsessed with memory techniques and how the brain works and how we retain information.
Touching lives is his continuous mission.
I now work for a non-profit where we deal with access issues regarding kids with disabilities and persons with disability. We're busy working on beach access.
Being wheelchair-bound did not stop fun in his life.
I party in a wheelchair, I laugh in a wheelchair, I smile in a wheelchair.
For all your uplifting stories, catch Bupilong every Friday.
Phones, cloud systems and robots have taken over a lot of what used to be done manually.
Our accounting system is actually based on the cloud.
Google nowadays can tell you where you parked your car.
And Africa's entrepreneurs are using technology to create.
With Pocket Masipala, you can basically do all the services that you would do at the municipality physically by going there, but you can now do them on a mobile app.
Join me, Spumelele Zondi, on Sundays at 9 p.m. on SABC News.
ANC Treasurer General Zweli Mkhize says keeping the African National Congress whole is of utmost importance. Delivering a Chris Hani Memorial Lecture in Lusikisiki, Mkhize also said that the concerns of South Africans about the economy and the debate on state capture cannot be ignored.
I can imagine that Chris Hani's message to the ANC and the alliance would be that we must sit down and talk honestly and listen to each other and unite all alliance, because it is not the time to dismantle or destroy this alliance. The destruction of our alliance is a game of no winners. Similarly, we must caution against the contest between the African National Congress and the South African Communist Party, where the SACP to consider contesting national elections in 2019. The outcome will be disastrous, to the extreme, and more devastating than all the previous splits from the ANC put together.
On air, I'll do. A Soweto learner has died after drowning while on a school trip in Mozambique. The 21-year-old was part of a group of 12 learners from Jeppe College in Johannesburg. Another learner is in a stable condition in hospital. Now, the South African Embassy in Mozambique is preparing to repatriate the body.
A grieving family. What was supposed to have been a learning trip for Mpho has turned into tragedy. She and 2 other students were swept away by a strong current while swimming at a beach in Inhambane, Mozambique. 2 survived and she didn't make it. The second-year travel and tourism student was doing practicals at the time of the accident.
As a school, we are still devastated by the accident, and we are very, very in shock. In fact, our students, every year, they normally go there for practicals, and what happened, really, we are short of words how, what to say, in fact. But our condolences goes to the family.
Both parents are still too distraught to speak. They say they are in shock and are waiting for more information from Mozambique. Her father will be traveling to Mozambique on Tuesday to be part of the repatriation process. Meanwhile, the SA Embassy in Mozambique is dealing with the repatriation. They say they are already in touch with the rest of the students and will give them the necessary support. Mpho is survived by both her parents and her younger brother. Sibongile Mkanimbolweni, SABC News, Soweto in Johannesburg.
One of the world's best-known mountaineers and climbers has died after falling in the Everest region of Nepal during preparations to climb the world's highest mountain. 40-year-old Yuli Stek slipped and fell over 1,000 meters on a smaller peak in the area. The Swiss climber was the first casualty of the spring mountaineering season in Nepal. Hundreds of foreign climbers will attempt to scale the Himalayan peaks later this month. Stek was best known for his speed climbing, and he set numerous records. And then, of course, the streets of East London throbbed with the roar of motorcycles this past weekend as thousands of bike enthusiasts descended on the city for the Africa Bike Week.
A quiet Sunday morning, a mass ride snaking through the city. A joy for the riders.
My uncle used to be, he used to work in a chemist, delivering some medication and stuff. So all the time, whenever I see my uncle, hey, listen, come China, that's how we started.
It's not often that you get females biking. So for me, it's wanting to explore, especially being a black female.
Bikers also reflected on the life of Nick Durant, an avid biker.
He's a great ambassador for the sport of boxing, and his loss is tragic to all of us, and I think we all feel that pain.
And for those who missed out, the bikes will return to East London next year. A 3-year contract between Buffalo City and Africa Bike Week is in place. Unatipingwase, SABC News, East London.
Now, as we celebrate Workers' Day and International Workers' Day and May Day celebrations around the country, our reporter, Aldrin Sampear, caught up with COSATU's president, Dumu Dlamini, earlier ahead of its rally in Bloemfontein. During that interview, Dlamini refused to comment on the opposition by some COSATU affiliates for the president to address the rally. In fact, he emphasized on the importance of the day.
Is that today is the Workers' Day, and workers come together to celebrate their victories, but also to reflect on their concerns and the challenges they are facing. That is what is important about the day, and workers will always express themselves by different ways. When they are happy about something, they will express themselves. When they are celebrating, they will express themselves. Today must be known for them having gathered together in the whole country to raise the plight of the working class in South Africa and to tell South Africa how are they going to deal with the challenges confronting them. So the political climate, let's agree, we're at a very, very crisis point politically in our country, and the leadership generally has got to listen to that
noise where workers in general are expressing their displeasure about many issues and get together to respond to that. And they are using today to do exactly that. So we're here, we are worried when the message of the workers, which is a positive message, cannot be heard. But workers must be listened to at all material times. We are here to celebrate Workers' Day.
You speak about a noise, you speak about that leaders should be listening to this noise that's coming through. But at this point in time, even standing now right next to you, you've got people who are wearing t-shirts saying that we support Jacob Zuma, 100% Jacob Zuma. Then you have the likes of Nehao on the other hand, who are calling on the president to step down. So you have this noise that's coming through from both sides. Some who are in support of the president and some are not in support of the president. So how then do leadership sit down and listen?
You've got to just understand why that is happening. One, COSATU has taken a decision that the president must step down. On the other side, you have COSATU that has this day to express themselves what their aspirations are. The balancing act is critical for the workers. They would have to choose what is it that they must be known about. And I believe that they are all here to say we are the workers in South Africa. We are suffering every day in farms, in the shopping malls, and everywhere. The employers are exploiting us, and we are gathering together here to deal with that issue. And that's the message that is very critical. Yes, they have expressed themselves on the leadership, and that issue as the leadership, we have to, going beyond this day, go to the boardrooms, sit down and deal with that issue that the workers are raising.
Tell you why I'm asking about these conflicting messages, where you have a message of support for the president and a message that's saying that the president should step down. I then wonder, how does COSATU then come to a conclusion that President Jacob Zuma should step down when you have these conflicting messages? Some of these people that are standing right behind you at the moment are workers themselves. Then how does COSATU then come to a conclusion that President Jacob Zuma should step down when there are some workers who are saying that they still have faith in the president remains the president of the country and must remain the president of the ANC as well?
It shows how divided we are, and it says to us that's the issue that we must deal with, the divisions that are there within our movement. Let us honestly, genuinely go to the tables and sit down, the alliance as a whole, and find out what is wrong and how we're going to deal with that problem.
When President Jacob Zuma is expected to deliver his the keynote address today, COSATU will be delivering a message of support as well on this day, and the SACP. Both these alliance partners have made it clear that President Jacob Zuma should step down. And I guess many of the viewers at home are wondering whether COSATU will be bold enough on today's podium to call on President Jacob Zuma to step down as the president of the country.
Look, I don't want to get into your channel, because we are here to raise the plight of the workers in this country, and we don't want that message to be overshadowed by one message, which is very clear. You hear that message here, but also the message the workers want to tell South Africa is that they are suffering under the labor brokers, they are suffering under atrocious conditions that they are exposed to every day. They must tell the world that. They must say we want a national health insurance, we want a comprehensive social security, we want a national minimum wage, we want freedom, we want a radical socio-economic transformation now. Those are the issues workers are facing, and they should never be overshadowed by any other different message.
Speaking about those issues, the reason that COSATU supported the President Jacob Zuma back in 2007, 2006 as well, was that because COSATU felt that having President Jacob Zuma come in, he will listen to the workers, he will adhere to the plight of the workers and make sure that these issues are being dealt with. There are various issues that COSATU has raised previously. Let's speak about the issues of e-tolls, for instance. Let's speak about the issues on labor brokering. These are battles that COSATU hasn't been able to win. However, though, there have been some goods and some arguing that there's been a step in the right direction now with the national national minimum wage. Whether it's a living wage or not, that's a different argument. But there has been some successes that COSATU has been able to win in the battle of trying to get workers, trying to get the plight of workers highlighted. However, though, some argue that probably this is the time where COSATU needs to sit down and look into whether it is still, whether it should still remain a member of the alliance, considering that there are some critical issues like the labor brokers that COSATU hasn't been able to win.
If COSATU in 2005, 2007, 2009 would have committed a mistake of relying on one individual, that individual was going to solve all our problems. That mistake COSATU must never repeat going forward, because I want to believe that problems that are confronting us are a responsibility of collective leadership. When workers are raising an issue about the president, that's on a specific issue. But the issues we are counting now, it would have been downfalling for COSATU to then say, because we have Zuma, Zuma is going to solve our problem, all our problem. That's not the COSATU that I know. The COSATU I know believes in the collective leadership and believes in consultation broadly. So it is important that going forward, COSATU is able to be clear, even as we support Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa to be president. We must never commit a mistake of saying Cyril Ramaphosa is the one that will solve our problems. That's a mistake that we must never repeat in South Africa.
What's the next step for COSATU heading forward within the alliance?
The unity of the alliance is sacrosanct. We have got to be genuine about resolving the issues that are there. We must go back after this May Day. There is a political council, which is an alliance meeting. We'll sit down and discuss all the issues that are there. So there is a way forward. We are preparing for the Central Committee of COSATU, which must say what is the policy trajectory the Federation is following. We are going to this Congress of the Party, which we must discuss all the critical issues. Policy Conference of the ANC, ultimately the Congress of the ANC in December. These are the issues which requires COSATU united, standing together, not allowing anybody to set us against each other. Our enemy is not ourselves here. We are not enemies to one another. Our enemy is monopoly capital. We've got to then unite and move on to ensure that COSATU is the voice that is critical, representing the voiceless in South Africa. That is the duty we're having today.
And it just when the CEC finally sits down, I guess quite critical as well, is an issue that was raised now by the likes of Nehao, CWU, as well as SAFTU, saying that the COSATU has called on the president to step down as the president of the country, but not as the president of the ANC. Do you think that that's something that needs to be clarified? Because now COSATU finds itself in a bit of a quagmire, considering that some are saying that President Jacob Zuma, as the president of the ANC, shouldn't be addressing COSATU members, because it might send a conflicting message to community members.
Look, as responsible leadership, we should avoid continuing to confuse members on the position the Federation is taking. I would rather say that matter, we are going back to our constitutional structures and have a discussion. I don't want to say whether the position we have is wrong or right. The position we have taken is a correct position. We have to go back and say, how do we manage that situation? So I would rather keep it at that, Adrian.
Just a final one before I let you go. President Jacob Zuma had called for a meeting between yourself as well as the top six of the ANC. Has that meeting taken place yet after the call for him to step down?
We have had the meeting between the General Secretary of COSATU and the President of COSATU and President Zuma after the call by COSATU. That meeting is going to be followed by a broader meeting between COSATU and President Zuma. There is also another meeting on the side of the officials of the ANC and the leadership of COSATU. That meeting is coming. There is another meeting of the alliance. We call it the Political Council meeting. That meeting is coming very, very soon. With all those meetings, surely we should be able to come up with a solution.
but has COSATU been resolute that President should step down, even in the initial meeting?
COSATU's position is that President Zuma must step down.
Okay, then perfect. Thank you so much. There you have it from the president of COSATU. Quite a lot of issues that we have to discuss, and we can go on and on with this interview, considering the current political landscape that the country finds itself in, considering the state of the alliance as well. And as the president of COSATU has indicated that today might be overshadowed by other issues, considering the political landscape that the country finds itself in. It's back to you in studio.
Thank you, Eldrin Sampier. And of course, we were supposed to speak to the new union, SAFTU, the South African Federation of Trade Unions, in our Durban studios, but unfortunately there were some difficulties. They would like to apologize to SAFTU for not hosting them this morning. And that's why we're conducting this poll, because we would like to check with you. They say, SAFTU that is, that they want to grow the membership base by promising workers a more militant and a worker-controlled organization that is free from political influence. And that's why we're asking this question to you. Should unions be linked to political parties? Now, so far, 427 votes are in, 21 hours left that you can still vote. 85% of you on the African continent are saying no, they shouldn't be linked. And 15% are saying yes, they should be linked. Now, let's take a look at what you have to say about this on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. You are talking to us about this poll, as well as on the Facebook page. Now, this one from Temba says, no, unions should focus on workers only and have that objective at the core of the organization, says Temba. Focus on workers' issues. IG says workers must be represented by both the union and political party. You need both legs to run a marathon to economic freedom. So says Lefa. So that's another take on that one. Wandile says unions shouldn't be part of politics, but rather address bread and butter issues of the working class. Now that is what SAFTU is all about, they say. Those are some of your comments. You can keep them coming, and we'll read them as we continue. But that's where we got to leave it for now. Thank you so much for joining us. It's time now to take a look at what's happening on the sports front with Marumo Kakana.
Thank you, Elvis. Let's give you a concluding sports bulletin. Defending Absa Premiership and top of the log Sundowns will lock horns with Bidvest Vets in a game that is potentially the PSL title decider. Downs led the PSL log standings, while Vets are third and 2 points behind them. Both teams won 2-0 against their respective opponents on Friday. The last time the two teams met, Downs won by 2-0. Vets know that a loss will dent their title aspiration, if not dash them completely. After going through a temporary lapse of form when they went 5 games without a win, the Brazilians are rolling along at the moment after picking up 5 successive crucial victories without conceding a goal. In a bottom of the log battle, Platinum Stars lost by 2-0 away to Ajax Cape Town. Meanwhile, Bloemfontein Celtics and Baroka FC played out to a 1-1 draw in the relegation battle in Polokwane. Only 4 points separate the bottom 6 teams on the log.
Of this game. Talking about home form, here's a chance! Beautifully done! Beautifully done as Baroka get the opening goal! Itolege amakhanda ke lapha yena ke uLakeya hayi khona wasafuna ukuyishayela lapha ke uLakeya. Thokozisi Dube, how painful will this be if they've got to concede? Well, here's Lakay. There's a goal. Lakay, something out of nothing.
And the man who's going to give them support is Rio Mere.
Nice looking pass and early. Take to 4. Ajax Cape Town, that's exactly what they needed. It's Grant Muggerman, the 18-year-old. I call him the Prince of Peril. It's Graham, and they've been able to do that, get in behind the Platinum Stars defense time over again. Deflection, hits the back of the net. I mentioned what a good game he's had, Divyenda Buka. Platinum Stars, left seeing stars, they seeing double. And it's 2 for the Urban Warriors.
They attacked well with the likes of Nathan Paul.
And moving further afield, Chelsea remain on course for the Premier League title after a 3-0 win over Everton left them 4 points clear of second place Tottenham Hotspur, who beat local rivals Arsenal by 2-0.
Matic, Pedro. Oh, screamer! What a hit from Pedro! Hazard, near corner, and in! Costa. Fabregas. Willian! Hello! Where's he come from? And now Eriksson, and Eriksson weaving through, and Ali! Deep breaths. White Hawks Kane at right half lane. Back by Derone, Gibson in there. Negredo can't get his shot away. And he's been forced in! On Middlesbrough! Lifts one in there. Jesus has an equaliser, and Manchester City.
And of course, that's how we wrap up your sports bulletin at this hour.
Fantastic soccer there. And I mean, it's a tight race in the English Premier League as well. Hey?
Tight race, even down here locally. It's just one of those, we're talking about the Vets playing Sundowns in the afternoon. It's going to be a humdinger of a clash.
I tell you so much. Hey? Well, that's where we got to leave it from myself, Elvis Presley.
And Marumo Kekana.
We'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place, right here on the Newsroom. Arrivederci.
Well, a very good morning and welcome to AM News live at 10:00 hours across all Central Africa regions.
A fitting send-off for a revolutionary giant, a life dedicated in service of the people.
The result means that the Swallows are out of the ABC